This is Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Doug. Wait, Doug? 47 species of kaiju have invaded the dinosaur landscape.
47.
And I have 100 days to defeat or tame every single one of them. And by the way, I cranked up their spawn rates 10 times higher than they should be. Yeah, everywhere is covered in death. So without further ado, I present to you Kaiju. This is gonna be difficult.
Welcome to the family, son.
On day 1, I spawned in the Highlands. And 3 seconds later, the Demogorgon from Stranger Things was staring at my glutes. What is that? I tried to ignore that, and instead I applied for a job as a humble berry farmer. And then I pressed Y on my controller like 85 times so I could use the berries to brainwash this gentleman into being my friend. And then 30 seconds into my run, I found the king of kaiju. Excuse me, sir. I'm a little bit scared right now. So, cornered between 2 species of sociopath, me and El Chapo were forced to go around the beach. Hey, let's go this way. There was like nothing here, but I managed to farm some fiber and eviscerate a few dodos for their hide. And then I used my newfound riches to make some cloth armor, because public indecency is a crime. The fact that I can see his health bar from all the way over here is definitely concerning. I really wanted to tame a pteranodon to get away from this awful place, so I continued along the beach, but then this happened. Wait, is he coming for me? But I didn't actually have to run faster than Fenrir, just faster than El Chapo. No! I got deleted. The end. Just kidding, I decided to spawn in Viking Bay. This is the easy zone, right? Everything looks safe here, except for that behemoth up there that's allegedly the legendary beast of Monster Island. So I did the normal ARK stuff and punched some trees, grabbed this rock, and made a pickaxe. And then I made a hatchet and a spear. And then after lodging said spear into the eye socket of my mortal enemy, I found a 150 pteranodon.
Victory screech!
So I grinded some levels during my night shift to unlock a bola and arrows. And then I made a mortar and pestle and split some meat to spoil for narcotics. And just like that, day 1 came to an end. On day 2, the meat spoiled and I crafted some narcotics and some arrows. But then I realized that I need to be level 21 to actually craft the trank arrows. I'm inferior. So yeah, I need to level up 9 times. But then I found this mentally deficient pteranodon trying to climb a tree. So I incapacitated him by smacking him in the shoulder blade 73 times with a stick. Good times. And after this generous parasaur donated me some hide, I looked across the water and saw a giant broccoli in the distance. Gaia, mother of titans. Yeah, just be a mother from a distance, please. And after emancipating this trilobite from its meaningless existence, I now had the resources for a PT cell. But while this dude was taming, I realized that I need to be level 38 to craft one.
They ask you how you are.
There's also some giant kaiju fish dudes in the ocean. Yeah, I feel like if I leave this beach, I'm gonna perish. Anyways, the pteranodon finally finished, and he seems sophisticated, so I named him Terrence. I then immediately ordered Terrence to assault this parasaur. But then this happened. What is that? Terrence, run!
Mango tear. Put in reverse, tear. Put in reverse. Oh, Lord, please.
What is that? I am so scared right now. So I declared war on this family of compies to assert my dominance, and then my PC exploded. I loaded back in, and somehow Okeanos, embodiment of the ocean, has been summoned. What? That'll show him. I started heading towards the Viking Bay cave to cower in fear when I saw a giant pair of wings from above, along with this horrendous noise. After making it inside, Terrence exterminated a degenerate, and we swam toward the land. I left Terrence in the cave, and I headed back out to grind some levels and make him a saddle. And then I immediately encountered a leather bag. Bro just got collapsed. Well, on the bright side, there's free hide everywhere, but that also means there's nothing for me to kill for levels, since these kaiju can't refrain from murdering the local wildlife. I also noticed that some of the kaiju render in like all the way across the map, which makes sense, but then some other kaiju, like this leather bag, render in when I'm 10 foot away. I don't know how to feel about that, but it's definitely gonna get me killed. Anyways, I snuck past World War III, hoping to not get waterboarded by a fish, and I grabbed this supply drop. it wasn't very good. There are so many interesting kaiju in this mod, including Ghidorah, Godzilla, and even Colossus from Attack on Titan. And I don't have any of them yet, but I do have Loki. Yeah, Loki, the Viking god, in Raid Shadow Legends. Not only is Loki completely free, but he's a legendary support champion. Basically, he butters the enemies up, medium rare, maybe seasons them with some garlic. That way Thor can completely eviscerate them. Raid is currently running one of the biggest events ever, called the Asgard Divide. And if you want legendary Loki for completely free, all you have to do is log on to the game 7 different days between now and October 23rd. And if you log on for 7 more days, there's a bunch more rewards waiting for you. And the other 3 characters, Odin, Freya, and Thor, will also be available through other in-game activities. And as part of the Asgard Divide, there's also a brand new limited time event dungeon. And for the first outing, the dungeon boss is Odin Faefather. Yeah, good luck with that. Raid has over 6,000 other champions as well, and the strategy involved with building the right team is definitely my favorite part about the game. The 2 modes I play the most are the PvP arena, where I have to outsmart my opponent, and the clan boss, where my clan has to work together to advance in difficulty. But if you download using my link in the description or my QR code on screen, you'll immediately get a huge starter pack and you'll get Tagore. He's from the Orc faction and is considered one of the best epic supports in the game. And once you hit level 15, you're gonna get Knight Errant. He's an epic from the Bannerlords, and he has some of the hardest hitting single target multipliers in the game. And once you're in, you can find me under the clan Juztify's jungle. Everyone's welcome to join, and we have Harambe as our mascot. So don't forget to download using the QR code on screen or the link in the description below, and thank you to Raid for sponsoring this video. Over on the beach, I saw a Colossus. He was fighting these 2 rogue Jaeger robot dudes, and then he literally kicked one for a 40-yard field goal. But luckily it fell inside this ravine. I really needed to level up, and he's clearly stuck. So I farmed some more arrows, and then I unloaded on that man. But then Colossus decided to head over, and he proceeded to crush all of my hopes and dreams. I managed to get away by using my peak athleticism to swim around these rocks, and I farmed this deceased Jaeger for some materials. Oh, a Jaeger blueprint. That could be pretty good. I actually set up the kaiju spawns to be biome specific, so every kaiju has their own unique location where they spawn. But I did still leave their ability to naturally spawn in random location. And they literally spawn everywhere because there's 47 kaiju.
How many stars is on the American flag?
We got 13 colonies, so 13 minus 50. 13 minus 50, 47.
Not to mention I put the biome specific spawn rates 4 times higher than what they should be because apparently I like to torture myself. But there were some Ragnarok boxes over here that gave me some pretty decent loot. Someone lost their luggage. Anyways, I was considering fighting the Scorpion for levels since it's not an absolute menace to society like some people, but I have no idea how much health it has. Some kaiju only have a few thousand health, but others have upwards of 60 million, which is, it's kind of a lot. Anyways, I started heading back, erasing peasants for levels along the way, and for some reason the Colossus started Olympic swimming towards the Okeanos kaiju. Ow! I think I picked the worst spawn location. At this point, day 3 was already coming to an end, and besides being level 27, I really hadn't accomplished anything. I'm a failure. But the goal was still to craft a Pteranodon saddle for Terrence and get away from this place. But luckily, I found a Rex, and if I took this thing down, it would give a lot of XP. I was about to farm some arrows, but then this dude showed up again. Fenrir again, bro? He's not even supposed to spawn here. I'm being targeted right now. Clearly, Viking Bay wasn't working, so I tried to fly southwest. I meant to say I spawned in the jungle. And this chitin lightning guy, is that how you pronounce that? Which I'm 104% sure that I coded to spawn in the desert, by the way, is making the loudest noise I've ever heard in my life. Dude sounds like a race car revving up and then his engine exploding intergalactically.
Welcome to the family, son.
Okay, so I'm a Viking now, and the giant fish just killed Colossus and gave me 80 element for being a witness, so that's cool, I guess. I stored the element in my mortar and pestle for now, and then I immediately got evaporated by Fenrir. So I tried spawning across the water in Viking Bay Zone 3. Dude, somebody help! I perished. So at this point, the goldfish is spawn trapping Viking Bay 1, and the Chihuahua is spawn trapping Viking Bay 2. So I tried making them fight each other, and then after getting mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and theoretically assaulted, Fenrir finally went fishing. His little minions took a few more respawns, but finally Viking Bay was safe again, minus the hurricanes caused by Mr. Salmon. On day 5, I couldn't find my body with everything on it from earlier, so I farmed some new tools while Siren Head stalked me from the cliff. The definition of kaiju is strange creature or strange monster, so I added a bunch more creatures than most people use with this mod. Anyway, there's free hide sources like everywhere thanks to the local warfare, which allowed me to craft a refining forge and grab some metal from the river rocks for a smithy. And now it was time for me to head back into my cave. But when I swam inside, oh! Almost had a heart attack right there. You must be level 60 to feed. Apparently, some of the kaiju are actually friendly, with passive taming like this Sorosu. At least one person doesn't want to harvest my kidneys today. Anyways, I made it back to Terrence.
Honey, I'm home.
We set up the refining forge to cook some metal, and set up the smithy to make some tools. I want to set up a really nice base in this run because I'm usually doing impossible challenges that don't allow me to have a base, but I can't do that yet because I definitely want to get a better location. Nice. So after all that, I'm now level 35, and I just needed 3 more levels for that glorious PT saddle. So after crafting a few more things, getting sent to the Shadow Realm, slaying this directionally confused shark, and actually managing to find my bag from earlier, I was finally able to make a saddle for Terrence. Or maybe not. Okay, really? And now, without further ado, it was time to explore this kaiju-infested world. Okay, I might have put the spawn rates a tad bit too high. Yeah, maybe just a tad bit. So I was gonna set up my base on this desert mountain because I didn't think that it was a possible spawn region for kaiju. Yeah, they're literally everywhere. Bro, that guy's rendered in from 3 light years away. The desert is home to the strongest and most unique kaiju on the island, along with the Badlands and the snow, which we've seen a little of already. And even though I'm fairly safe on Terrence here, there are several flying kaiju like this Manticore, all of which are faster than Usain Bolt and want to murder me. Just another Tuesday. Anyways, I headed to the Desert Crystal Cave because I really needed crystal for a spyglass. This wasn't any ordinary spyglass though. This is the awesome spyglass mod, which allows me to see the health and torpor of dinos or of kaiju. This spyglass is step 1 in taming my first sociopath, kaiju. Because these fellas range from only a couple thousand up to 60 million health and torpor. And this is my first time ever using mods on ARK, so my brain can't comprehend numbers that large. But in the meantime, I headed back to the canyon since it's close to the middle of the map, and it didn't seem too overspawned. And I looked over towards the swamp, and I noticed well, it looks like the molded from Resident Evil 7 if they were the size of Mount Everest. Anyways, I decided to go into the waterfall cave because, well, I just like waterfalls a little bit more than dying. And it was in this cave that I set up an exquisite base. I had plans to do something more impressive later, maybe on the bridge, but for now, I just wanted to survive, and I definitely have some more important things to do. The first step of my master plan was to domesticate a griffin. They spawn right here in the canyon, and in this world, pteranodons are not gonna cut it.
They ask you how you are.
But first, I needed to set up a trap, so now it's time for an epic grind montage.
I do it again.
So now I had a full stone trap, and I made a Tranks Plus mortar and pestle where you can make like super narcotics by combining 10, 50, 500 narcs into a single shot. Which I do admit that it sounds pretty overpowered, but it's basically nothing when you have kaiju with the torpor levels of Mike Tyson. This video took a lot of time and a lot of emotional trauma. So if you're enjoying it, or if you're a Moss Chops, please consider subscribing. We're getting really close to 100K, and I need your help to make it happen. Also, let me know in the comments if you were part of the first 100K. I read every single comment, and I'll remember you, I promise. Anyways, I still needed some more narcotics for trank arrows, so I went out to tame a vegan to farm some more narco berries. But unfortunately, I got a little bit too close to the giant broccoli, and she got really angry and spawned in like 30 super Quetzals. She spawned Quetzal? Why are they so fast? I got removed from the premises. I didn't know she could do that. And Terrence is no longer with us, so I'm kind of stranded here in the middle of the canyon. I have literally nothing, and I didn't really know what to do. So I crafted some new tools, and I headed to the back door of my cave in hopes that I could find a griffin. A griffin at this point would be immaculate, because you can shoot tranks while you're flying on their back, which is perfect for knocking out a kaiju. All I could see from up here though were some high-level RGs, which is cool, but they're kind of slow and I would probably get eviscerated, so I decided to just send it. I parachuted down. I really hope there's not degenerates down here. As I descended into Death Valley, I saw a Rex, which made me a bit uncomfortable, but there was also 2 Pteranodons. Level 15? 135. Okay, I had my recording paused. Clearly, Viking Bay wasn't working, so I tried to fly. Alright, yeah, that's the first kaiju on the hit list. Colossalus is going to die.
Are you sure about that?
I wanted to try and get my stuff back from over there, so I made some more parachutes. And I floated down like a butterfly through the air. Totally not fearing for my life or anything. There was a Cherno Alpha standing on the mountain down here, and he seemed friendly enough. However, someone else showed up who wasn't so friendly. Ow, get away from me, bro. So I shot him in the dome with a horse tranquilizer, and that convinced him to leave me alone for now. All of these kaiju, yet I still hate the Microraptors more. Luckily, the 140 RG was still here, even though the Pteranodons were no longer with us. Also, Colossalus has 340,000 health. He's gonna have 0 when I'm done with him. Anyways, I decided to go for that 140 RG, but then I accidentally went bungee jumping without the bungee. And somehow I have no more fiber in my entire base. Yes, by my entire base, I mean the smithy. So I can't make any more parachutes. And skydiving without a parachute is pretty fun, but you can only do it once. So my only option was to go out the front entrance where the giant death Quetzal was staring into my soul. There's also a kaiju dire bear here with like 300 children all ravaging what's left of civilization on the cliff over there. But I was just minding my own business, picking fiber from this bush. I must have offended this man somehow, though, because on sight he sprinted over and committed a homicide on me. Ursa Minor the small bear. Dude, that thing was not small. I had to wait 2.5 minutes to respawn. And when I finally did, the bear was still protecting all things fiber, standing directly on the entrance ramp. So my only other option was to jump down into the water with Colossalus, which honestly seems more appealing than the allegedly small bear. So after I joined Colossalus in his bathtub, he literally just despawned. Yeah, that's right. You better teleport. I'm not gonna claim to understand how any of these spawns work or even that I set them up properly. But anyways, I found my body and yeah, apparently this water is fake, which is why I died from fall damage earlier. Okay, so now it was nighttime, and the 140 RG was still alive, somehow, but Dododex says that it'll take 24 trank arrows to make him lose consciousness. I only had 7, but there were some trikes here that I could tame for narco berries. But before I could even try anything, this giant robot dude randomly sprinted over and proceeded to murder the RG. And after he finished destroying my hopes, dreams, and backup plan, we made robotic eye contact. Oh, please no. Why is he so fast? Dude, really? Why? On day 9, I headed back out and the robot had ran pretty far away at this point, and there was no way that he would aggro me from all the way over there. Oh no. Hi, can I help you, sir? I was pretty desperate at this point, so I tried spawning back at Viking Bay, but I got electrocuted by a fish. So yeah, I'm being gatekept by fiber right now. There's a stego, an aloe, and this patchy that I could tame on the ramp in front of my cave, but I don't have any narcotics and all of my tranks are in the bag next to Mr. Robot. The bears also wouldn't allow me to go down the ramp, and to be honest, I was thinking about giving up at this point. I was about to decrease the kaiju spawn rate, but then I got an idea. So I jumped to the front and kited the small bear to the death Quetzal. Oh, they have beef? Okay, this is good. This gave me just enough space to farm all 2 of the bushes for fiber and mourn the death of this very unfortunate Pteranodon. The patchy was now dead too, but the stego and the aloe are still existing. I was only able to make 6 narcotics from that though, and the parachutes are kind of useless now since I just land on top of Mr. Robot. But that wasn't actually part of my plan. What if I didn't have to go down there? What if I got the RG to come to me? So I grabbed all of the structures that I made earlier for the griffin trap, and I set up a little makeshift RG trap inside the cave. And then after losing my existence to this raptor, I used the last of my metal ingots to make another crossbow. And then I kited the aloe off of this cliff into the pack of rabid tree huggers. It was time to stop being broke. We're getting some narco berries. This side of the cave was surprisingly calm, minus the giant lizard doing backflips over there. I pressed the Y button on my controller for about 10 minutes straight, and the game decided to give me everything but narco berries. But after deforesting the entire tri-state area, I finally had 120, which is definitely not a lot, but it allowed me to cook up 25 more narcotics. So now, with a total of 31 trank arrows, it was time to tame that RG. I really hope I don't mess this up, man. When I arrived on top of Mr. Robot's domain, I didn't have a spyglass to check any RG levels, but I only saw one of them anyways. So I shot him to get his attention. Well, I tried to, but I didn't account for potential skill issues. I wasn't sure if the crossbow could even reach that far, and at this point, I was starting to lose hope. But then, this happened. Yes, come to me. So I kited this gullible specimen to my trap where I would drug him with NyQuil laced arrows. He's only level 55, but I just needed literally anything that can fly right now. On day 10, I was waiting around for this man to finish his raw meat, and while I'm waiting, let's play a little game. What do you guys think happened next? Was it A, the RG finished taming and we started a family together? Was it B, Vin Diesel spawned in next to me and executed Mr. Robot? Or was it C, I got assaulted through the wall by a literal tentacle monster? Well, yeah, I understand that C doesn't even make sense, but that's what happened. What the heck is happening? Typhoon Everworm? Excuse me? Luckily, he was above the cave, so in theory, I was safe. But unfortunately, it seems that the tentacle bro is versed in quantum physics and can just phase through walls. I waited for the RG to finish taming before I spawned back, and luckily I managed to get him away from, I don't know what to call that guy, but what I did know is that I can no longer live here. There's tentacles with aimbot everywhere, and not only are they shooting poison, but now they're playing horror movie organ music. I can't even grab the stuff from my base without them trying to strangle me. Leave me alone! I really can't afford to lose this RG right now, but I also really wanted to grab my stuff. So I just went for it. Dodging giant purple monster tentacles with sleepy potions flying everywhere, I hid behind my RG, grabbed all from the smithy, dropped some stuff, and then I listed my cave for sale. I am never coming back here. Look at that, man. That used to be my home 5 minutes ago, and now there's unspeakable things going on in there. I was safe on this cliff here, so I evaluated what I had, and I realized that I have no idea what to do or where to go. I needed to stay away from the giant broccoli, so I went this way, and I found this dude. Beast Stallion. He doesn't look too crazy. Never mind. This area was insane, and I needed to avoid the home wrecker named Typhoon, so I headed back through the cave because it seemed like the safest option. No, not like this. Luckily, I made it through. And Mr. Robot seems to be on vacation, so I was able to grab my body from earlier. It's nothing crazy, but I got my spyglass and some arrows back. This RG is slower than my grandmother though, while she's sleeping, so I decided to go look for a griffin. But flying around with an RG to actually find one is absolutely terrifying. I saw a giant behemoth jump up into the air, so I turned to cower in fear, where I saw an owl beast, who has wings by the way. So I went back towards the behemoth because wings mean death, but it actually seems like Cherno Alpha is friendly, so at least there's that. Anyways, as I was flying into the canyon, so slow that if it was any slower I'd be going backwards, Destroya literally spawned in right in front of me. Oh no, please. But luckily, his body weight percentage was astronomical, rendering his wings useless. Basically, what I'm saying is the man can't fly. He literally spawned in skydiving without a parachute. Oh, my stamina. Oh, no. I did manage to survive somehow. This is rough, bro. I've been upgrading my stamina every chance I get, but it's never gonna be enough. There's more kaiju around here than there are mistakes in ARK's code, which makes it nearly impossible to find a safe place to land. Anyway, that destroy a guy, 5.4 million health, by the way, and no torpor, so does that mean he's a passive tame? On day 11, I found a few PTs, but they're getting terrorized by that Reaper looking guy. Dude, calm down. I was gonna search the canyon for griffins, but I'm kinda scared now, so I went around instead. And then there's this guy. There's no way this ends well for me. I tried to go check out the Redwood Cave to maybe set up a new base, but it was infested with miscreants. So I crossed back over by the canyon, and I found this level 135 PT with no kaiju around. So I slayed this small arms dealer, and I got my Trank arrows ready. But then when I turned around, Terrence's cousin was getting sliced up by a manticore. I hate this so much. So I continued on with my painfully slow RG, and I actually managed to find 2 griffins at the edge of the canyon. But they decided to declare war on the giant broccoli and proceeded to get stepped on. Okay, yeah, this might be impossible. So I left the canyon and I made my way through the swamp where a bunch of giant spiders and siren heads were living rent-free. I was heading towards the island cave when this ginormous garbage bag spawned right next to me, and then my game crashed. Very fun. When I arrived at the island, I was met by bee stallions spawning relatives of Harambe by the thousands. What is that? I made my way into the cave, and there was nothing in here, but the area is definitely not safe, so I can't stay here. I was running out of options, but I remembered the desert crystal cave from earlier. That might be my last hope to finding a safe zone. So on day 12, I made my way, very slowly, to the desert, and there was a bunch of these Famuto. I barely was able to find a place to land for stamina without getting absolutely demolished, and I don't think I want to live here. And at this point, it seemed like nowhere was safe. I was starting to lose hope. But then I remembered why I was doing this. Because I accidentally messed up and overspawned the kaiju. Yeah, there's no real reason. So after force feeding myself 12 hours of David Goggins edits,
10. They don't know me, son. Get it. 18. They don't know me, son. Good. 22. Who's gonna carry the boats and the logs?
you know what? I'm not gonna let that purple homewrecker bully me with his tentacles. So I headed back to the canyon, slowly. Almost got murdered by a manticore on the way, but luckily he decided to land on an oxygen particle
They don't know me, son.
and fell into the abyss. There were many more near-death experiences, but when I arrived after acknowledging that one tentacle has 21,000 health, wow, that man is very healthy. I grabbed my crossbow and some arrows and I landed on top of the cliff. And I started sniping right at Mr. Typhoon. But instead of chasing me, he sent the whole squadron. So I proceeded to kite them off of the cliff, and seeing these tentacles get waterboarded brought some happiness into my day. I couldn't get Typhoon to move though. I'm assuming it's because he was fighting this leatherback. So I went back into my old cave for now, hoping that it might be safe. It wasn't. He just spawned even more tentacles. Bro, how many do you have? Except these ones were very large. Those were massive. They were also shooting trank spikes, and my RG is about to pass out right now. Anyways, all the tentacles are in the water, and I realized that Typhoon is actually stuck inside that lake, so there's no way I could kite him off the ledge. I tried to kite the leatherback over to make them engage in hand-to-hand combat, but even when he did his little 85-foot vertical suplex maneuver, they just instantly became best friends. And now, united they stand, both wanting to murder me. Anyways, they're stuck, and there's only 2 tentacles inside the cave, so I think it's almost safe. And as day 12 came to an end, I decided to continue my search for a griffin. That really would solve all of my problems. After searching most of the canyon, I found a few griffins, but they were all low level and or getting demolished by various degenerates. Only a few griffins can spawn on Ragnarok at the same time, so they're very rare, like a lot rarer than the kaiju that spawn trap them. Anyways, while searching, I found a 135 PT that actually wasn't next to someone that could devour the entire planet. So me, being a good Samaritan, decided to help cure his insomnia. This nearby stego had some prime meat on it, but when I tried to borrow some, the dude tried to send both of us to our downfall. I managed to harvest him midair, and after waiting like 15 minutes, I had successfully gaslit this fellow citizen into being my friend. That's how I make all of my friends. I named him Terrence Jr. in memory of a war veteran, and then I realized that I was so stressed out earlier that I forgot to name my orgy. So after grabbing some crystal, we headed back to the cave to grab a saddle for Terrence. It is so stressful trying not to aggro the kaiju. Like, it feels like I'm playing Minesweeper anytime I try to move. But then, on my way back, like 3 destroyers decided to spawn right in front of my eyeballs. I ran, but in the process, I aggroed 2 entire manticores. I ran. 3 seconds later, Terrence got mauled to death. No! I thought this was the end. But luckily, I managed to get the manticores aggroed onto the destroyer, and then I retreated back to the bridge. Oh! Luckily, I managed to find another 140 Pteranodon nearby, so I sent his consciousness to the Shadow Realm. I didn't see anybody nearby with meat of the prime variation, but below me there was a deceased kaiju, a manticore. So I went and started harvesting the late beast with Hawk Hogan, and I continued harvesting. Yeah, Hawk Hogan was harvesting this man for like 5 minutes, and there's still some left, apparently. But after shoving some prime manticore into the esophagus of this gentleman, I gave him a very original name. And then after making it back to my cave and reuniting with my pet tentacle, day 13 came to an end. While I was getting my stuff organized in the smithy, the home invader tried to raid my base, so I decided to take him for a walk and kited him off this waterfall. I didn't realize that these things could actually walk, otherwise I would have just done that earlier. Anyways, I needed more hide for Terrence's saddle, so I headed out, and above my cave, I found some floating giant ants and their mother, who is currently leading the Revolutionary War. But then I realized, wait, the giant purple typhoon tentacle bro is gone. I didn't know how this happened, but I'll take it. So I farmed some hide from these volunteers, and I crafted Terrence Jr. a designer saddle. I proceeded to farm some trees to craft some thatch foundations, which I scattered around above my cave where Typhoon used to reside to block any future kaiju spawn. Hopefully I can keep this as a permanent base. I also let Terrence Jr. taste one of the locals. Okay, I figured out how to get chitin. Now that I was back at base, it's time to come up with a plan. I still want a griffin, but that seems very unlikely to happen, and the only other good flyer I could think of is a wyvern. Hopefully, if I get one of those, I can use it to tame my first kaiju. I'm worried about losing my Pteranodon again though, so I found a low-level female over here on the backside of my cave, and I waited on her to tame, while hoping that the behemoth from Monster Island, who is currently staring into my soul, is in a non-murderous mood today. Back inside my cave, I bred the PTs for a bunch of backup eggs, just in case Terrence meets his maker, which is highly likely, but please don't tell him that. And this entire run, I keep getting jump scared and accumulating partial hearing loss every time a new kaiju spawns in. Like, the mod is great, but to the mod developer, why is it so loud? Anyways, I crafted some torches, and I set up an incubation area, where I microwaved 4 eggs, and one of them hatched twins. But unfortunately for them, some of them decided to not have the right stats.
You done messed up, Aaron!
So Hawk Hogan disposed of them. No mercy for the weak. I made sure that all of the survivors had enough food, because I'm a very good parent as long as you're useful to me. And while they were raising, I set out on Terrence, where I spent the rest of the day searching for griffins. I didn't find any. Seriously? Yeah, Terrence got Control Alt deleted. On day 16, I used Hawk Hogan to farm some more hide, which I used to make another Pteranodon saddle for Terrence Jr. He seemed a bit shaken up when I gave him his name. When you get named Terrence Jr. after witnessing Terrence Jr. get mauled to death by a giant broccoli. I also needed some new tools, but we were all out of hide again. So I let Terrence mate some more while we farmed some. And I was able to make a new pickaxe and a spyglass, but I was also out of metal. So I headed back out while I observed Siren Head backhand slap a stego while repeatedly sounding Amber Alerts. And over by the metal rocks at Greenaw, Behemoth and Colossalus were kickboxing. So I kept my distance and I farmed a bunch of metal. And on the way back, I found a level 50 griffin next to this Kuki-rai. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I'm uncultured and I've never heard of most of these psychopaths before. But regardless, I almost got deleted. All the griffins are such low level, man. I made it back to base and I started cooking up some metal. And then after Siren Head put me on a watch list before exiting using the waterfall, I deforested an entire ecosystem because I needed some wood. And then I crafted a stone 1x1, unlocked and crafted some flak armor, suited up, and got ready to enter the wyvern's domain. When I made it outside the cove, there was a behemoth, a Famuto beefing with a Demogorgon from Stranger Things, another behemoth, and 2 Broccoli's. This ledge right here was decently safe, so I constructed a massive penthouse. But I kind of forgot to bring a roof. So now if it rains, we're gonna get wet. And, you know, Kaiju might be able to murder me as well. Anyways, I descended into wyvern territory, and the Demogorgon from Stranger Things immediately started chasing me. So after barrel rolling to the safety of this ledge, I realized that the Demogorgon, aka the Pacific Rim Kaiju, is blocking the entrance. And that's a whole lot of wyverns. Once I was inside, I landed for stamina. It was really hard to hear the actual wyverns because the sounds of Godzilla suplexing Kong outside. Anyways, the first nest had a lightning egg, but it was only level 100. This is nice because it's right next to the door, but I would prefer a bit higher level. Wyverns go all the way up to 190. So I continued searching, but then I got snared by a kaiju through the wall from outside. Oh, please! And to make things worse, a wyvern spotted me. No, Terrence! Bro, this is so unfair. After some whistling, I managed to get back on Terrence. He was on life support, but we did manage to get back outside. I didn't see any wyverns chasing me, and I never stole any eggs from them, so I assumed that everything was fine. But then this happened. I didn't take anything, I swear. I'm gonna die. The kaiju are literally, like, cheating, bro. Staring me through the wall is crazy. Anyways, it's day 18 now, so I grabbed another PT and a ceiling for my penthouse, but I needed to breed some more PT eggs before leaving. So they began that, and this time it was a breeding pair. So we had the guaranteed good stats. But then while they were breeding, this happened. What? So with my lightning reflexes, I hopped on Hawk Hogan and whistled all of the Terrences, evacuate. That was close. I don't know how that thing got inside my cave, but we were safe up here. And the PTs were still breeding, absolutely unfazed. Well, y'all definitely have your priorities straight. But now Callisto, the giant bear kaiju, and a bunch of these monkey looking things from Beast Stallion are at the entrance. I should probably build a wall or something to keep them out of my humble abode. So I started trying to kite these barbarians off the cliff, but then Beast Stallion found my Terrences. No, leave them alone! So I started spamming whistles like Flow Rider, and all 3 PT are still alive for now, but the female breeder is super low health. And we still had the problem of Beast Stallion. He's in good health, still standing down there, menacingly, guarding the entrance. So I managed to anger him by simply existing, and I kited that lanky monstrosity into the pit of doom, where he immediately started picking a fight with the entire population of Pangea, and then I kited the last few of his little monkey minions down there with him. They weren't very strong, so it was pretty easy. One of them drowned? What a loser. Callisto the bear was also over here fighting a Venus flytrap, and she lost, so we were all clear for now. I grabbed the PT eggs and safely escorted my Tyranna gang back into the cave. And after harvesting some hide from his unsightly sibling, Terrence continued breeding for backup eggs, because I think I'm gonna need a whole army to get a wyvern at this point. Anyways, before I can leave, I need to make this cave a bit safer. So I crafted some new tools and flak armor, and I went out to farm some behemoth gates to block off the entrance. As I began physically assaulting this tree for its wood, I almost got disintegrated by a leatherback, but luckily it wasn't me who got clapped for 13,000 damage. And then, well, my game crashed. The kaiju were really starting to pile up as the spawners don't ever stop. So my game was starting to crash pretty frequently at this point. I did manage to find a clear area though, so about 234 rock smacks and 679 tree slaps later, I used Hulk Hogan's saddle as a smithy to craft a stone behemoth gate. So now we had a gate, but I still needed some walls to fill in the gap. However, my mortal enemy, ARK's netcode, made it very difficult. When my PC finally stopped mimicking a jet engine, I continued to farm resources of the stone, wood, and thatch varieties, which allowed me to craft some fence foundations and a bunch of stone walls. But I can't make the right side any taller because it's obstructed by the rock, and I physically can't have an asymmetrical wall. Like, I don't have OCD, but I might have OCD. So I dismantled that wall. I drank some water because I'm dehydrated, reconstructed the wall, and then I realized that it's just not possible with this cave shape. And there's a gap in the wall. Oh, it looks so bad. You know what? I'll just never look at it. Anyways, the backside of the cave should be fine because there's no land entrance up there. So I decided to farm some meat from this hash-slinging slasher and a deceased tyrant. And then I hatched all of Terrence's children and raised them myself because he's an absent father. Better not leave, buddy. That child support bill is gonna be in the millions. I spent the night shift farming a bunch more metal. And on day 20, after cooking up said metal, all of Terrence's children were full-grown adults. And despite them living in the same cave for their entire childhood, they had still never met their lousy father. Anyways, that makes Terrence expendable again, so I flew back over to my wyvern penthouse. Still missing a ceiling, by the way. So I farmed the very rare materials and repaired said penthouse. And then I found my body from earlier, just chilling above the law of gravity. My arms aren't long enough to grab it all the way over there, but when you harvest bodies in this game, the bags drop to the floor. So I did that and I grabbed the loot, but it was so heavy that I could no longer fly. And Behemoth was getting very close. Luckily, I managed to drop a bunch of stuff and make it out of there before getting transformed into a barbecue sandwich, and it was now time to go for a wyvern egg. But first, I went to go grab this yellow drop with a ring around it, because they're usually pretty good. It was being guarded by this mutated lizard, and then Behemoth jumped over and tried to assassinate me, proceeded to absolutely steamroll the mutated lizard. But while he was distracted, I took the opportunity to go for the yellow drop, and it was definitely not worth it. Yeah, that wasn't my smartest moment. I'm being a lot less careful since I have unlimited Terrences. Anyways, any volunteers? Looks like it's your lucky day, Terrence Jr. I think it's 5. I kind of lost count, to be honest. Anyways, I booked a flight back to the cove. We found Terrence's long-lost evil twin stepbrother on the way. I wanted to grab my body, but it was stuck in the middle of Colossalus and the one and only Behemoth. But after some waiting around, I managed to get my stuff back and we regrouped at my penthouse. Now, it was time, but I forgot to unpause my recording. And Terrence here didn't remind me. I'm really sorry about that, but anyways, what happened was, I entered the cove and all of the wyverns were in the back. So I grabbed that level 100 lightning egg that we saw earlier, and then all the wyverns were like, "Finish him." I was immediately overweight because Terrence is a weakling, so I panicked and dropped my 10-pound shirt and my parachutes, which is why you can see my perfectly developed pecs right now. That made me light enough to actually be able to run away. The wyverns were all confused, and yeah, I have this level 100 lightning egg now, which it's not amazing or anything, but it's definitely better than anything else I have. Anyways, now I went for this red drop, which made my day slightly worse, and I only had enough weight to carry the egg because once again, Terrence is a weakling, so I dropped everything off and I started heading home. But when I landed for stamina on this rock and I wasn't paying attention because I was taking notes for my script, this happened. Oh no. Well, I can't tab back into the game. I was on like 30 health due to the poison damaging the player directly. But luckily, he aggroed onto some peasants by the green knob, and I got away. I don't know how he followed me this far without me noticing, but that was close. It wasn't over yet though, as it randomly became freezing, and my health was dropping fast. So I tried to get away from the snow where a beastallion was spontaneously combusting on the beach. I thought I was done for. Not like this. But then while I was just sitting there, someone turned on the heat. I definitely shouldn't be alive right now. When I made it back to base with the wyvern egg, I grabbed the resources from the reserve to make some torches for the egg. But then I thought, you know what? We can do better than torches. I'm gonna make a proper incubation area with some air conditioners. So I used my entire life savings to make some spark powder and cementing paste in the mortar and pestle, and then I crafted a fabricator, and now I'm bankrupt. I needed a lot more resources to start setting up any semblance of a base. So I decided to condense about an hour of farming into approximately 30 seconds. So I now have a professional incubation area. I'm still homeless though. And I brought all of the fancy materials over to the fabricator to craft some air conditioners. And then I inserted some hide and oil into my refining forge to cook up some gasoline, which I would use for not only gaslighting Kaiju, but to also meticulously construct a generator and 3 air conditioners, all for the sole purpose of bringing baby wyverns into a world where they most certainly will get annihilated by very large degenerates. So for this design, with the air conditioners inside the bottom here, you can place any eggs anywhere on the top here, and they'll incubate. I was all out of electronics though, and I don't think that this is enough for a wyvern egg. Yeah, it's too cold. So I needed to farm some more silica pearls to craft some more electronics. And it's been a while since I've played on Ragnarok, but I did remember that there were some in the southwest water. So on my way towards greatness, I witnessed a bee stallion wreaking havoc on every living and inanimate being that crossed his path. And then my game crashed. Good times. Anyways, after redoing the last 15 minutes of gameplay, we're back. I spotted some pearls in the water from above, so I dove into the Megalodon residence and I scooped them up off the ocean floor. As I emerged, my lungs began filling with water and I almost became one with the ocean, but I luckily managed to make it out and I started flying back to base. Well, after my game crashed 2 more times. And I ended off day 22 by crafting 50 electronics. Wow, that's okay. That's not very impressive. Yeah, I probably should have gotten more pearls. On day 23, I consolidated every ounce of metal I've earned in my entire life, but it still wasn't enough. Alright, I give up. So I proceeded to craft 10 standing torches. I placed them all up here, I farmed some wood, and then I started incubating the egg. Too cold. So I placed 2 more torches. Finally! Children are so high maintenance, man. So I began waiting for the egg to incubate, and that's when I realized that I was low-key incubating myself. Imagine on your obituary the cause of death being because your child said it was cold inside and you just wanted to make them happy. I was also dehydrated, so I went to chug the entire river, and when I got back, the little gremlin was hatched, sitting there looking very smug. So I turned off his torches, reluctantly adopted him, and gave him a very appropriate name. The metal was still cooking insanely slow, probably because I only have 1 forge on day 23. So I went to get some stone. The broccoli is still fighting the Venus flytrap, and I really hope it stays over there. So after that hard day of work, I made the forge, I split some metal, and I imprinted the child. It was going to be a bit longer before he was old enough for ARK's labor lulls. So in the meantime, I decided to bring Terrence back to the cove and try and get another wyvern egg. On day 24, I arrived at my penthouse. But Terrence is a weak little man and only has enough weight for the egg. So I removed my 50-pound clothing down to the underwear on my waist, and I headed over. Naked, by the way. There was an awful noise, and Leatherback was doing high jumps while Siren Head was alerting the authorities. Pretty normal day. The wyverns were still out from the last time on the right side here, but I snuck through this little cave area and made it inside. There were a few wyverns on the sides of the cove, which I saw because, bro, this spyglass feels like cheating. 55 poison, 60 poison, 15 lightning. And somehow Sorosu spawned down here. What's up, buddy? I found another bad lightning, another 60 poison, and another 45 lightning egg. The fire egg, however, was level 90. It was the best egg in here, but all of the wyverns were right next to it. There's only like 3 wyverns in here though, because the rest are all right outside the entrance from when they chased me last time. But with these 2 flying miscreants right next to me, ready to assault, I decided to kidnap their child. They became very angry, so I barrel roll speed boosted out of there. The 2 escaped convicts right on my tail. I went straight up into this cave part where the wyverns usually get stuck, and this time was no exception. I thought the ones outside would be an issue, but they seemed to be too far away, so I started bringing the egg home. But apparently it wasn't the wyverns that I needed to be worried about. This time, it was Greg. I tried to outrun this guy, and honestly, there's no way that I should have, but Greg has the attention span of a peanut, and I managed to get away physically unscathed. Mentally dead inside, but I'm okay. And then while I was grabbing stamina, a pack of rabid ants started shooting some nasty looking liquids at me, and then they fell into this trench, which initiated the Civil War. I'm just gonna see myself out. I'll talk to y'all later. But then Greg returned to the scene. Oh, I don't like you, bro. I tried to run, but Terrence ran out of stamina. The dude is life or death, just suck it up and fly. This little ditch over here was kind of keeping me alive, but eventually Terrence got devoured. So now I'm on foot and not athletic enough to get over this rock. So I tried to run past Greg. It actually worked, but I got bonked in the process. I ran as fast as my little legs would carry me, screaming for help. He's trying to murder me. But the prehistoric police response times are even worse than they are in 2024. I really didn't expect to survive this, but Greg's peanut-sized frontal lobe came in clutch once again. Oh, we got distracted, and I was able to survive for another day, which I would spend cowering in fear in this corner. I'm very scared. Greg was on my left, so naturally, I ran to the right. I stuck to this rock to avoid the giant mutated lizard fella, and after seeing an ant that's bigger than I am, I thought I was safe. But then, Greg's ex-wife spawned in right above me. Leave me alone. And this time, I wasn't as lucky. I got deleted. Back at base, I told Hawk Hogan stories of my journey. It was crazy, bro. Greg's a menace. And then I grabbed high maintenance. 4k health and 290 melee is actually really good for this low of a level. And now, it's time to get revenge. Well, actually, Greg has like 30k health, but I'm gonna get my stuff back at least. So I gave high maintenance some food and made a basic kit for myself. And I took flight. Siren Head has 90k health. Yeah, I don't know how much this wyvern's gonna do for me. That Sorosu only has 3k health though, so I was planning my first kaiju kill very soon. Anyways, I continued over to get my body when Greg and his ex-wife both aggroed from insanely far away. Instead of just talking about the relationship issues, they take it out on me apparently. I managed to lose them though, and my body is right here next to Colossalus. Somehow I grabbed it without being skinned alive. There's like 15 different kaiju here, by the way, including Mr. Tentacle. Anyways, we should be good now. At least that's what I thought. Again? What is your problem? I managed to get him distracted like twice, but then when I landed for Stam, he just randomly aggroed me from all the way over there for no reason. And this time, despite my best efforts, I couldn't get him off of me no matter what I tried. The wyvern that I worked so hard for was slain by Greg's ex-wife. Just like that. I'm very upset right now. In hindsight, I probably should have used a Pteranodon for that, but up until now, they haven't aggroed me from anywhere close to that far away, so I didn't understand the mechanics at the time. Anyways, I grabbed a PT. You are the chosen one. And then I heard some loud footsteps above me, so I went to check it out, and it was just this upstanding citizen taking an ice bath. So I started flying back to my place of demise, and the Manticore aggroed as soon as they rendered in. All the way over there. Luckily, they got distracted on some PTs that will certainly meet their maker. But this gave me just enough time to grab the fire wyvern egg from my body. I couldn't grab the rest because my pteranodons have never touched a dumbbell in their life. The power couple was already speed running towards me at this point, so I went towards the self-combusting beast stallion and managed to leave render distance. I had to go all the way around because the snow is death on this map, but I managed to get the fire egg back to my base. That was eventful. On day 25, I tried incubating the egg. It was too cold, so I added 2 more torches. Then I decided to go see what Greg and his ex-wife were up to. You know, maybe get my body back. They instantly aggroed on sight. Big surprise there. And they hit the Cherno Alpha by accident, but bro has monk level discipline, doesn't care at all apparently. So I evacuated and I saw a level 15 Griffin. These psychopaths were like permanently aggroed on me though. Like they get distracted, but ultimately have the life goal of making me uninstall the game. I even tried to get them to fight a Colossalus, which worked for like 5 seconds, but as soon as I started running, they were right back to what I was reporting as harassment. I hid in my base for a while, but they were door camping and they weren't leaving anytime soon. Greg was like stuck in the water and I made fun of him, having some skill issues. But then his ex-wife traversed the universe to incapacitate me, so I tried kiting them to these lava rock dudes. I got erased from existence. I really needed these degenerates gone from my life, as I can't leave without being brutally murdered. Some next level harassment. And I realized that instead of getting them killed, I could just kite them away. But I needed another PT saddle first, so I checked the front yard to see if it's safe. Got a glimpse at the back of my eyeballs for a second there. And Beast Stallion was swimming up a waterfall, but no manticores. So I contracted Hawk Hogan to free these raptors from their menacing existence, and witnessed Godzilla using the top of Mount Everest to do a calf workout. And Callisto got consumed by broccoli, probably angry that bears aren't vegetarian. Anyways, I now had enough hide to make a saddle. Or not. Yeah, I'm uninstalling. I then realized that Hot Wing wants wyvern milk, so I uppercut his jaw and then found some extra hide in the fabricator to make the saddle. I selected a male pteranodon for this mission because I discriminate against them for not being able to produce eggs. And after pumping his stamina and informing him of his condition, it looked like Colossalus might already be solving my Greg problem, as they're having an aquatic showdown right now. So I made a spyglass to assess the situation, and I may have gotten a little too invested in their fight. Colossalus with the body slam onto Siren Head, who is drowning in the middle of the ring. Greg's ex-wife absolutely annihilating a Dilo who paid good money to be here. But then, they all focus their aggression onto the announcer. Wait, no. So my brain traveled back to reality, and I started flying as fast as I could towards the canyon. There's all kinds of unspeakable acts going on down there, and it's out of my render distance, which is perfect. I was getting very low on stamina, but I already knew that I wasn't surviving this. The goal is for Mr. Destroyer here to do some destroying, and I think the mission was a success. Anyways, Hot Wing is now eligible to get a job. So I took him out and kited away the squadron of lava golems so I could grab my bag. I also tried to find my other bag, but I don't know where it was, so I farmed this Jaeger for electronics and this Diplo for hide. And I headed back to my base to make a new kit. I used the metal that finished cooking to make 4 more air conditioners for my incubation area, and then me and Hot Wing left the base and witnessed a skullcrawler clap, do a backflip, then a 360 tongue swing. I was looking for my first potential kaiju kill. I found these Carniflora, I think that's how you pronounce it, the Venus flytraps, that only have 1.8k health. So I was about to attempt to slay my first kaiju, but there was an owl beast close by and I don't think I can outrun them, so I left him alone for now. And I headed back to the Wyvern Cove since I can now fight back. There was a poison wyvern in the entrance, which almost killed me from the poison damaging the player directly, but after leaving for stem and heading back in, I roasted that man. I stole 4 low-level eggs in this suspiciously empty cove and leveled up my wyvern a bit, but then another poison wyvern attacked from the back, although this time it didn't go so well. He took my wyvern's health almost all the way down, which prevented me from regenerating stamina. On the brink of death, I used the little stam that I did have to try and escape, which was exactly enough to get me outside and onto this rock, where I consumed 4 entire wyvern eggs because their levels were inferior, force-fed Hot Wing 900,000 calories worth of raw meat to heal him up a little bit, and then I headed back inside to finish off my mortal enemy. And after evading his toxic advances, I put him out of his poisonous misery. I proceeded to steal 3 more useless baby wyverns, and after Behemoth breathed fire from outside through the wall, I heartlessly consumed all 3 eggs, and found this Sorosu at the bottom. He's albino. He had 3.6k health, and I didn't know if this was a good idea or not, but I wanted my first kaiju kill. But then I remembered that these guys can be passive tamed. That sounded like a better option, so I tried prime meat, but it didn't work. I'm assuming it was kaiju cells, since that's what the spyglass says. So I went to go find some, and upon leaving, I managed to avoid a chitin, a mothra, and a behemoth. I was gonna head back to base, because in about an hour, this cave will be refilled with hopefully better wyverns. But I saw this Sorosu fighting an iguanod. Getting murdered by an iguanod, actually. So I swooped in and harvested the scraps. And I brought the kaiju cells back to the Wyvern Cove. There were a lot of wyverns right outside and a bunch of pearls in the water, but all I cared about was finally getting my first kaiju. So on day 27 at 2 o'clock a.m., I put some kaiju cells into the last slot of my hotbar, and I pressed Y on my controller. Now, we wait.
Later.
We wait some more, I guess.
Later.
Okay, so day 27 is over now, and bro is still on a hunger strike. I tasted one of the dead kaiju cells to see if they really are that satiating, but nah, it just almost killed me. Apparently they aren't to be consumed. Anyways, I waited some more, and then it finally happened.
Brother, may I have some oats? No.
And now I have to wait again. And 20 minutes later, I decided that this is definitely not worth my time, just for a scorpion. I just wasted like an hour, but I'm not leaving here empty-handed. So, me and Hot Wing planned our attack. Do like a quick 2-second music transition. It started out really well. Oh, I'm messing this man up. But then things went downhill. Fast. Oh, this man's really messing me up. He was doing insane damage, and he managed to snare my wyvern so I could barely get away. I did survive, but he did 4k damage in a matter of seconds. I only do 1440. Luckily, he forgave me for trying to delete him, and I can still tame him actually. But I'm not just gonna sit here and wait even longer. Maybe I'll check in next month when he's hungry again. On the way back, I tried to fight this Alpha Raptor, but got interrupted by 2 thugs. I also saw this Goliath guy, and I realized there's actually a lot of kaiju that I haven't even seen yet. Probably because they don't have a crazy render distance, and there's also a bunch of biomes I haven't even been to. Anyways, it's definitely time to attempt a kaiju tame. And for knockouts, a griffin would obviously be better than a wyvern. So I demolished my trap for resources, and I spent the night making a new one just in case I found a decent griffin. On day 29, I loaded up the trap into Hot Wings' pocket, grabbed some tranks, and set out to scout the universe for a griffin. I was also looking for a passive tame kaiju, but I'm not really sure which ones are passive, and I don't want to get close enough to find out. Anyways, it's now time for a searching/exploring montage. Oh, Hunter Griffin, let's go! There was a giant spider and Fenrir, who I'm not very fond of, right next to him, which is definitely a problem. I managed to convince this brood mother's mother-in-law to go cliff jumping, and Fenrir is over there terrorizing the world right now, so I think I'm safe from him. But the little spiders, however, had 1.4k health, and I almost perished to that one scorpion fella that has 3k. So I decided to just kite these guys into the ravine as well, which was pretty easy actually. And after eliminating some worthless beings, I set up my griffin trap. Got assaulted before I could finish it. But after adding a roof, I kited this level 100 leprechaun and locked him up inside my contraption. I was expecting that to be a lot harder. Anyways, I only had 16 trank arrows on me, and Dododex says it'll take 67, which is a bigger number than 16, I think. So I went back to base, and then my game crashed. After loading back up ARK Survival Evolved, I rushed back over to make sure that the griffin was still there, and luckily he was. But now he was being held hostage by Broccoli. I'll deal with that after I get the tranks, I guess. Back at base, I had plenty of spoiled meat, but no narco berries, and no herbivores to farm them. I kind of need them right now, so I started spamming Y on my controller. And then my game crashed again. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna repeat the last 15 minutes of work real quick. Anyways, it's day 30 now, and I crafted 60 more trank arrows. I then headed back over to Gryffindor. His efforts to escape were still futile, and the broccoli was in the canyon now. This was the best chance I was gonna get. So I started shooting. And with literally one arrow left to spare, the mythical beast has fallen. Apparently, Hot Wing was getting mauled by a hash-slinging slasher this entire time, which I happily roasted. I wanted to make sure Gryffindor lives up to his full potential, so I needed some prime meat. Oh wait, I just got some from that theory. And now, we wait. I thought that maybe I could tame a parasaur for berries while I was waiting, but then Beast Stallion's monkey children started harassing me, and then my game crashed. Good times. I loaded back in and I tried to kite them away, but 2 of the monkey boys came over and tried to slaughter my griffin. Luckily, I managed to kite them into the abyss, but Mr. Gryffindor was getting really low on health. But he's 90% finished. We just gotta wait a little longer. These little monkey minions have 17k health each, so killing Beast Stallion is definitely gonna be interesting. Anyways, we were all good now, but then my game crashed again, bro. And then when I loaded back in, the whole starting lineup ran over, and they have this slowing effect, which almost got Hot Wing killed. But after kiting them all into the void, and watching this Akira Sorosu smite the remaining monkey men out of existence, I sat here, on life support, when a random rock just got flung into my griffin trap, dealing thousands of damage. What was that? That was, in fact, Beast Stallion. I almost became a banana, because, you know, monkeys eat bananas.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I tried to kite him off the cliff, but I had to be careful. One hit, and I'm dead. But then my game crashed for like the 5th time in a row now. Dude. Except this time, I was kind of happy that it crashed. Anyways, after some waiting around, the griffin was finally tamed. So I vacated the premises as fast as possible, and then my game crashed. And after doing all of that again, and seeing literally every kaiju in existence all wreaking havoc on our solar system, I made it home with my new griffin. There was a molten Sorosu here now, and I think I could tame it while doing some other stuff. But first, I needed a name for my new form of transportation. Peter Griffin. So the new plan is to grind a long neck rifle and some tranq darts. That way I can use Peter Griffin to knock out a kaiju from the safety of the sky. I needed a berry farmer for narcotics, but I also wanted to tame this molten Sorosu that got door dashed to my front lawn. So I kited the broodmother's sister-in-law off the edge. She did like a speed boost crab walk thing and almost gave me a heart attack. Calm down. And after my game crashed, I fed the molten Sorosu its favorite food. And I tried to see if this friendly Gigamoth dude was a passive tame, but being in his aura caused physical damage to me. I know some people in real life like that. So I farmed some more narco berries, witnessed my Sorosu do a Usain Bolt impression and full sprint off the cliff. He got torn to shreds by an entire gang of hungry Neanderthals, by the way. Yes, he didn't want to be tamed. And while I had my recording paused like a professional YouTuber, I found this civilian that only wanted Tinto berries, so I tamed him. I then farmed some more narco berries with Chopstick's assistance, slowly trotted back to my cave, crafted 43 more narcotics, and made a Tranks ++ mortar and pestle, so I can make the absolutely insane tranq darts needed to knock out the big boys. I was considering taming Beast Stallion or Fenrir, because if they can still spawn creatures while they're tamed, that seems kind of overpowered. But anyways, I took Hawk Hogan to farm metal for the long neck rifle, and I saw a red drop, so I rerouted my GPS. Okay, you can keep it. This area is experiencing intergalactic warfare right now. I tried to find more metal rocks, but there were 4 behemoths and a Famuto here. So I started cooking the little metal that I did have, and I used the obsidian to craft some scissors, which I used to give myself a haircut to fit the brand. Curly beard? Do they not know what that word means? I can't wait until my curly beard grows out. Anyways, it was time to farm some tranq darts. A lot of tranq darts. So I gave Hot Wing 30 strands of my hair. I don't know why I did that. And then I used Hawk Hogan to grab Chopstick by his eye socket and carry him outside, where I would slay this baby Sorosu and then give Chopstick the generous opportunity to work a full 40-hour shift with no pay.
Each time when I come here, I am abused.
Alright, this is going too slow. Best berry spot in the game. By the way, the reason there's no kaiju here is because my game was crashing so much that I had to reset all of their spawns. And don't worry, they still have the insanely high spawn rates, but it'll take about 30 minutes for them to spawn back, and I'm taking advantage of the situation, okay? Anyways, while farming, this 95 Griffin aggroed Hawk Hogan, which would be an amazing tame, but I'm unprepared and Hawk Hogan is slower than my upload schedule. So I tried running back to base, but bro would not mind his own business. It was kind of harmless at first, until I realized I'm about to delete. When I got inside, I hopped off and sprinted to my savior named Hotwing. You did not. I was gonna tame him, but after that, I had to get my revenge. Alright, come here, buddy. Rest in peace to Hawk Hogan, man. You made all of this possible, buddy. Juan the Iguanodon is on 70 health and bleeding out right now, so I forced him to work overtime and put all of the narco berries from the late Hawk Hogan into Juan's inventory and brought them over to the smithy. I then used Chopstick for all he's good for, a storage box.
Each time when I come here,
I had an exorbitant amount of berries, but when kaiju have hundreds of thousands of torpor, it's really not much at all. Anyways, I didn't know which kaiju I was gonna tame yet, and one desperately needs to heal up. So I grabbed Hot Wing, smited some civilians for their meat, proceeded to force Hot Wing to train for an eating competition to heal himself, and then I set out to kind of scout how much torpor all of the different kaiju have and hopefully make my decision. After grabbing this abysmal blue drop, I observed that Cherno Alpha is about to get his 1 million torpor play button. Congrats. Behemoth doesn't have torpor, so I don't know how to tame him yet, but I decided that for my first one, a kaiju flyer would be pretty great. No, not Greg. I hate that guy. There's another one that looks like Greg, but on fire, and actually deserves to exist in this world, unlike Greg. I think he spawns in the desert, so I took a road trip. or air trip, I guess. As I crossed the Wyvern area, I found the Fire Greg. His name is Horus. He had 65k torpor, which isn't bad at all, but I realized that him having wings means I would indefinitely perish. So I kept scouting the desert. Goliath, 150,000. Wait, does that... Dude, that says 10 billion! He's tired of the world's shenanigans at this point. Yeah, me too, man. I wasn't looking for someone that put every level into fortitude, so I continued into the heart of the desert dunes, and I came across something very unexpected. Doug? Bro, what are you doing here? I've never heard of a kaiju named Doug before, but why does he have 25 million health? He looks so innocent. He also had 7.5 million torpor, and he's a knockout tame, so I decided to make it my goal to tame Doug before day 100. Anyways, I left Doug alone for now because I don't really want to die today, and I wrapped back around the map, noting the different torpor levels of potential victims from my trank darts. 700k, 250k, and like 8 heads, 250, infinity, 150. I guess you can't knock out broccoli. 200, 750, 10 billion apparently. That's kind of scary. Godzilla only has 1 mil. That's actually not bad at all. I also checked out the Wyvern Scar and the Volcano. 500k, 80 billion. I would eventually figure out that these guys with absurdly high torpor had different mechanics for taming instead of knockout. But anyways, at this point, I'd searched most of the map. I still hadn't seen a few of the kaiju, but I now had an idea of what I was gonna do. But first, while I was here, I decided to ruin the day of an entire family lineage of beavers. I hit level 99 in the process. And then I proceeded to extort all of their tax-advantaged retirement accounts for some cementing paste. Everything was going great, but then Greg showed up. Oh, not this guy. I tried to run, I tried to get Fenrir to help, I tried to get Behemoth to help, I tried flying straight up. There was absolutely nothing I could do. Greg was locked in on Hot Wing, and he was slowly becoming the villain of my story, although he's probably gonna be a hero in some beaver folklore. This was super frustrating though, and it didn't take long before Hot Wing got neutralized. I was able to survive for a few more minutes while my mortal enemy stared into my soul, and I consumed one last rare flower before leaving this world. I'm pretty sure Greg like spawned in the air above me. I can't catch a break, man. So back at base, I leveled up Peter Griffin's stamina. He's the only thing I have left pretty much. I used the remainder of my metal on a new long neck rifle and some flak armor, unlocked the remainder of the Tranks++ Ingrams, and started evaluating the narcotic cost. On day 34, I glided through my backyard on Peter Griffin to try and find some metal, but for some reason none of the rocks were respawned. So I grabbed the last one by Greenhob, and while that was cooking up, I went scouting for a Bronto, because a Bronto would be the absolute fastest way to farm narco berries from the yellow flowers. I didn't find one, but I did witness a Siren Head pick up an entire dire bearer and ate that whole thing in one bite. Back at my base, I made some cementing paste and poly so I could craft myself a soul gun and a few soul traps, which is basically just a mod that works exactly like cryopods, but they get shot out of this paintball gun, and they also work with Kaiju. Behemoth was also right outside of my Behemoth gate, and I mean, I couldn't do anything about it, so I just had to hope that he doesn't crush my hopes and dreams, and I went out the back door. I didn't find any Brontos, again, but there was a level 135 Diplo here, which is, again, not a Bronto, but it's still pretty decent, so I began the passive tame, and I proceeded to wait like 10 minutes because for some reason one berry filled up all of this man's stomachs. He still wasn't hungry at this point, but my taming progress was now over as Behemoth decided to fling himself through the sky, and then my Diplo turned into a pancake. I regret increasing the spawn rates. So on day 35, after crying in my cave for an hour, I took some action and I kited Behemoth off the ledge so he couldn't raid my base, and then I scouted around some more and found a decent level RG, which after Hawk Hogan's tragic death, I really needed to transport berries and metal. So I used Peter Griffin to start tranking and kiting this man back to my base. And then You'll never guess what happened. My game crashed 3 times actually, but eventually I kited him into my cave, lodged some arrows into his forehead, crashed again, farmed some prime meat from the RG's second cousin, fed him his second cousin to help him recover from his slumber that I induced, and while waiting on him to tame, I was scouting some more and I realized that Skullcrawler is a passive tame. I was considering him with a low torpor, but passive on that guy? Yeah, I'm good. Also, Colossalus' description says to wait on his Steam Blast and then induce torpor. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I might try shooting him during his blast attack. 10 billion torpor is kind of insane though. Anyways, on the way back, I saw a level 90 Racer and some Brontos that got spawn trapped by Behemoth. So Racer it is, I guess. And after giving my RG one of the names of all time, I crafted some more trank arrows, and then I realized that I could just make 1 super trank that's equal to 50. So I did that, and I headed back over to tame that Racer, did 8,000 torpor in 1 shot, which, again, I don't use mods, so I feel like I'm cheating right now, but it didn't matter, because after he was knocked, Siren's goofy legs immediately started wobbling over here, and no matter how many times I sliced that man's shoulder blade with Peter Griffin, he just wouldn't stop. My Racer was dead before it was even my Racer. So I headed back home in shame, and I gave Peter an all-you-can-eat buffet, if all you can eat is raw meat. And after he was fully healed, I made 1 more of those crazy purple trank arrows. Game crashed again. I'm pretty sure Beast Stallion is actually the reason for these crashes when he spawns in an entire generation of children. Anyways, the Demogorgon, aka the Pacific Rim Kaiju, is looking really appealing right now, but that's 700,000 torpor, and it's a lot more than I can deal with. So I continued my scouting for a good Bronto, and by the southwest beach, next to this Famuto that is running 100-meter sprints, I found a level 100 Bronto. I had to take advantage of this opportunity, so I kited him down to the water so he wouldn't get involved in Colossalus and Behemoth's kickboxing tournament. And then I went back to base to make a few more blue 10 times tranks so I can knock out this long-necked specimen. So while my friend was napping, completely voluntarily by the way, I farmed some berries to brainwash him into staying my friend. But Behemoth was getting really close, and I've seen this go wrong way too many times at this point. So I made him angry and then led him away. And I also noticed that Goliath is a passive tame and is docile according to his description, which could be worth exploring for sure. But as nightfall approached, the Bronto was about 30% tamed, and I was still babysitting Behemoth over here, which was actually going pretty well until my game crashed. Anyways, I just kind of sat here for half of day 37 to make sure a random sociopath didn't try to assassinate my Bronto in his completely voluntary sleep. And I also took the opportunity to farm this deceased Colossalus, who he managed to die in a very questionable position. I had to drop 64 of the Tuso eyeballs that man had in his pocket, but I got a solid amount of Kaiju cells and 16 element from that. And the Bronto was now at 70% tamed. So after waiting for another 15 minutes, I gave my new best friend a very sporty name. But then I realized that he is actually a she. Oh, it's a female. So I adjusted accordingly. After placing the new Hannah Brontana inside of my off-brand Pokeball, and I was feeling ambitious today, so I decided to try and passive tame the Goliath. I put some Kaiju cells in my hotbar and I got close to the gentle giant, but apparently you need to be level 100, and I am level 99. So after getting kicked in the mouth, so I could experience emotional and physical damage consecutively, I headed back to base to wallow in my inferiority. I was obviously going to use Hannah Brontana for narco berries, so I figured making a mortar and pestle and grinding out a stone 1 by 1 for a portable crafting base would be the best option, especially if I place it near those otherworldly yellow flowers. On day 38, I got trolled by a red supply drop again, and while I was trying to read the description of this crazy Hydra looking dude, my game crashed. When I loaded back, I checked on the Sorosu that has an eating disorder and still isn't hungry, and then I set up the 1 by 1 next to the yellow flowers. Although being this close to Behemoth is definitely concerning. Also, I don't know why Behemoths are spawning so much more than literally anything else. Maybe they just killed the other Kaiju, but honestly, I probably messed something up with the spawn code. Anyways, the Behemoth killed the Sorosu that I was taming. This is why we can't have nice things. So I harvested some free Kaiju cells, but I'm too scared to throw my Bronto out right here with these sociopaths living rent-free. So I went over here where there's still some yellow flowers and exterminated this pest. And with the assistance of my best friend Hannah Brontana's extra large tailbone, I farmed like 2,000 narco berries in 3 seconds. And I was too scared to bring them to the box and keep farming, so I had to fly all the way back to base to craft some narcotics in the mortar and pestle. And it was at this moment that I realized I have nowhere near enough spoiled meat for all these berries. And waiting around for thousands of meat to start growing mold, well, that does sound kind of fun. But potentially, possibly, perhaps, perchance, there's better uses of my time. So I installed this mod called Meat Spoiler. Had to farm some more stone again to craft one. But as you would never guess from the name, it instantly spoils all of the raw meat that you throw in there. And it's tiny. Like, dude, look how cute it is. So I grabbed all of the meat that I was hoarding inside of one, I don't know how he's holding all that, and instantly spoiled it using the worst refrigerator of all time. 2,497 spoiled meat. I just can't get over how much these mods feel like cheating. Anyways, I now had enough spoiled meat to use all of the narco berries that I was forcing Chopstick to hold against his will, and it would probably be a good idea to make a chemistry bench, because this is insanely slow in a mortar and pestle. But for now, I headed back out, where I found Behemoth literally invading my vacation home, so I kited him away. I added a meat spoiler to my vacation home, threw back out Hannah Brontana, and after like 4 tail swings, I had 12,000 narcos inside of the implant on my forearm. And at one point, Hannah Brontana got slot capped from 2 swings. I'm only on 3 times harvesting, by the way. Anyways, I started crafting some narcotics, and I farmed another batch of narco berries. This farming spot is just stupid. That was a 1-hit slot cap. Anyways, I had to quickly scoop up Hannah Brontana into my paintball because Behemoth decided that he wanted to fight me. And no matter how many times I kited this man away, he was stuck on aggro just like Greg was earlier. Why does everyone hate me? I eventually convinced him to go halfway across the universe, and I was popcorning all of the narco berries and transporting them over to my vacation home when I noticed something. The mortar and pestle was gone, and all of the narcotics and the spoiled meat that were inside, there was no bag anywhere. None of the structures were damaged either. Someone stole my drugs! So I just dumped the berries into the smithy, and then I decided to craft a chemistry bench because this is clearly not working. So I hopped on Peter Griffin, and it was time to set out front to grind some spark powder. But little did I know that this would be Peter's last flight. See, this is why nobody likes broccoli. After respawning, I called for a family meeting where I informed everyone that Peter Griffin doesn't have the ability to respawn. It was very sad. So I promoted this Pteranodon to Terrence, and everyone collectively knew what was about to happen to him. I opened my behemoth-sized gate to investigate, and there was like 800 broccoli stands flying around. So I jumped into the water and got ready to kite them off this cliff. But when I approached them and got their aggro, they instantly decimated me before I could even jump. After waiting 4 minutes for the bed cooldown, I respawned and tried again, but now they're even closer to my gate. Well, that went well. 5 minutes later, Terrence, it's your time to shine, buddy. Or perish, whichever way you want to word it. Terrence bravely flew past the aerial degenerates and descended into the pit. They didn't follow me at first, but after poking my head up and barrel rolling back into the pit of doom, we experienced some painful things. But more importantly, I can actually leave my base now. Well, I will in 5 more minutes. I queued some more narcotics to craft, made a new PT saddle, leveled up the Chosen One stamina, and I flew out to get my body back. At the location of our downfall, I saw Peter's lifeless corpse contorted on the ground here, and I considered harvesting it because, you know, like, that's a good hide. But it's also my boy. I feel so conflicted. While I pondered on that, I grabbed my stuff, including Hannah Montana inside the Pokeball, and then all of a sudden, a herd of oversized spiders started randomly raining from the sky. Ah, help! Fly, dude! I got Control-Alt-Deleted again. I'm running out of Pteranodons, so it was now time to start adding females into the workforce. I saddled up the level 22 Lady Terrence and went to investigate the aftermath. where I would find a large clan of spiderlings trying to fight like 10 different kaiju down there. And it turns out Arkney the skin crawler and her millions of 8-legged children were falling from the cliff above. I guess my thatch foundations broke. I just sat there, flabbergasted, as they instigated warfare on anything with a pulse. And then while this genetically modified mammoth tried to rid the world of arachnophobia, another Arkney spawned in. At this point, I was already on my second bag of popcorn, but after they fell into the abyss with everything else, I grabbed my bag and headed back to the safety of my cave. I've already experienced death 5 times today, and it's not even lunchtime. Once I got inside, I put my clothes back on because public nudity is still a crime. I hid my hat so everyone can see my curly beard when it grows out. And now that Hannah Brontana is safe again inside my paintball gun, I needed to block the spawns off again. So I used all my life's work to craft 8 thatch foundations, constructed a sickle, and took Joe Burden out to farm 1,000 fiber in 14 seconds. And then I smacked a tree for thatch and crafted 20 more foundations. I would have spent the extra day grinding stone foundations, but Kaiju can break those too, so I decided to literally just block off the entire mountain with this thatch. Oh, that was close. I had most of the mountain blocked off with my thatch at this point, but the leatherback started using my foundations for target practice on his 35,000 damage body slam. And I wasn't going to let this guy bully me, so I got his attention. Hey, Jimmy. I kited Jimmy over to this ledge, and when he reached the ledge, he stopped. And then I stopped. We stared deeply into each other's subconscious. And I just kind of sat there for a minute. I mean, I was at a pretty safe distance, waiting on this man to finish his attacks and just fall off the cliff already. And, well, he did eventually jump off the cliff. But what I didn't realize is that he was skilled in trick shotting. Oh, what? What? No! Oh my... Yo! I'm angry, upset, and disappointed. Okay, so look, I had my recording paused again. Yes, there's something wrong with me. Basically, this entire World War III that's going on in the canyon over here, it started with the Quetzal Battalion absolutely decimating a Fenrir, then an Arkney, Callisto, a Guanot, and like 2 more different kaiju. And then I used one of my least valuable Terrances to cut the Quetzals down there, and yeah, that's what's still left after the 3 Destroyers started going ham. Bro, I just had to revoice after the 3 Destroyer like 8 times. Some alliteration of doom right there. Anyways, the ledge right here by the dead Callisto is where my body was, and I had to drop almost everything out of it because of the weight, but I did get Hannah Brontana back. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm trying a new method where I keep pausing my recording to rough draft my script while I record, but I keep forgetting to unpause, and it's always at the worst moments. Like, that war had over 20 different kaiju involved, and I was getting like 5 FPS with explosions everywhere, and I didn't even record it. Why am I like this? Anyways, moving along, as you've seen in the footage this entire time, I have pretty much the entire mountain above and around my cave blocked off with thatch foundations to prevent any more kaiju from wandering over and falling into my base. But this also means that resources won't spawn either, and I'll have to farm on the ground where there's so many kaiju that I can't even land for stam, basically playing the floor is lava, and yeah, I'm not too excited about that. But on the way back to base, I found a 145 RG at my doorstep. Amazon Prime is really monopolizing the prehistoric economy. So on day 42, I made a few super tranks and then I launched them into this oversized vulture. He started flying away as his internal battle began to try and stay awake. And now he's asleep. I realized there's not a single piece of meat in my entire base because I intentionally spoiled it all. So I grabbed Juan in a Pokeball and went to find a target. And then my game crashed. I started barrel rolling this Wolverine chicken for its prime meat, and then my game crashed again. And 10 barrel rolls later, the fairy literally just disappeared.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Bro, where'd he go? So I had to find another target, and after some 360s and some biting, I fed my RG the primest of meats, made him a saddle, and gave him a name. I placed some more foundations, then turned around and almost got clapped by a leatherback. How are you here? So I introduced him to the pit of doom. Anyways, my goal is to craft a chemistry bench to make the narcotics to tame my first kaiju. I've been trying to tame one for the last 25 days. It's not going too well so far. So I crafted some spark powder in my mortar and pestle, and now I need, well, all of these other things. So I unlocked and crafted a scuba tank. I'm too poor for the flippers. And I took Terrence back to the southwest. And I would like to point out that with all these mods installed, it takes a solid 3 minutes to boot my game up every time I crash. So I decided to reset the spawns again. They'll all be back in like 30 minutes, don't worry. Also, my game crashed again for no reason, but when I finally made it without my PC temperatures reaching melting point, I started grabbing a few pearls, but there were bloodthirsty sharks everywhere. I parked my unnamed PT above the water for easy escape, but 2 of them were black pearls, and they weigh more than I do after Thanksgiving. This slowed me down right before I became the victim of a shark attack. I'm gonna die. Oh wait, no, I'm gonna live. Oh no, I'm gonna die. The unnamed PT was out of range and the sharks were closing in fast. Luckily, I managed to whistle and mount the PT, but I had to drop the black pearls because they were too heavy. Across the water, I saw a red drop and 3 more red drops in the distance. Why are there so many? So I headed over and I tried to grab this one next to the Cherno Alpha, but it was stuck inside of a rock. Just add one more thing to the list of things that went wrong. There were a lot of pearls all around the water, but there were also a lot of sharks. It took a while, but after some very careful, very slow farming, I managed to grab about 200 electronics worth of silica pearls. That did take most of day 43, but on the way back home, right next to the yellow flowers, I found this beautiful creature. No way. This was the luckiest thing that's happened to me since the Renaissance. And after all the insanely bad luck that I've experienced throughout this run, I cannot afford to waste this opportunity. So I quickly dropped off all of my stuff and I headed over on Hulk Hogan. I mean Argent 47. I kept the griffin in my sight while I farmed some stone and wood to make another griffin trap. And I forgot to build a ceiling. Well, that's definitely not right. Can't reach it though, so I guess that's fine. It wasn't the best ceiling I've seen, but it's up there.
I thought my jokes were bad.
I ran over to grab this mythical being's attention, and then I immediately ran out of stamina. Oh no. Luckily, he has the attention span of a toddler with ADHD. And internet access. I managed to get him to follow me to the trap, but every 3 seconds he would just lock on to something else. But eventually he took his Adderall and now he's locked inside of a cage. I had to go back to base to make a 50 times trank arrow, but even after shooting him with that, a 10 times and like 37 regular arrows, he still had insomnia. So while he tried to run, I tried using my fist to motivate him into sleeping, which almost killed me, so I crafted a club. Voluntarily, he finally fell asleep, and after grabbing the primest of meats from this carno, I fed my sleeping beauty and then I just sat here waiting for the tame. I didn't want to leave because as long as I'm here, no kaiju will spawn. Hey, my curly beard's coming in. 20 minutes later, me, Argent 47, and Gryffindor took flight. And now, on day 45, I finally had everything back that I lost like 10 days ago. There were a lot of narcotics in the trinks plus mortar and pestle, and like 600 more still crafting. And more importantly, I had a griffin again, so I was ready to tame a kaiju. I just needed to finish crafting my chem bench to speed up for the narcotic crafting. So I cooked some meat to not starve to death, and I took Argent 47 out back where I saw Hedorah and Godzilla taking over the world. I turned around and flew all the way to the side of the mountain where for the first time ever, I could land safely and mine metal without kaiju terrorizing my existence. I farmed as much as I possibly could because I don't know if I'll ever have this opportunity again. And with 1,000 pounds of metal inside Argent 47's I don't want to know where he keeps it. I flew very, very slowly back to base. Well, at least I tried to. After my extremely encumbered flight, I arrived to find Beast Stallion spawned in right on top of my foundations somehow. I was almost out of stamina, but luckily he went cliff jumping on his own free volition, and then my game crashed. But after splitting the metal, farming some wood, and extending my crafting station to split the metal even further and cook faster, I took Gryffindor to the Canyon of Death to farm some crystals. crystal. And then a familiar face spawned in right in front of me. Hey Greg, it's not so great to see you, buddy. But luckily his peanut-sized brain got distracted and he started beefing with a destroyer from above. I quickly farmed the crystal and then almost lost Gryffindor to Fenrir's goons. No, fly up, fly up. And I almost aggroed Greg's twin brother, but then he decided to nosedive and fight a Tech Gojaran. I hate going anywhere near that canyon, but we survived and we now have around 200 crystal. I did need a little bit more, but I decided to go for the cementing paste next. So on day 46, I headed back out to the Beaver's Paradise. On the way, I noticed that Hedora isn't tameable for some reason. And as I glided with like 20 kaiju below me, my game crashed. And then, my game crashed again. And then, my game crashed again. So I had to take it slower and land more often to let the kaijus load in, but I can't land because the entire map is covered in degenerates. And then while I was admiring this Mecha Godzilla putting a mere mortal into a spin cycle, my game crashed again. So I reset the kaiju spawns again. I know I don't like doing it either, but those 4 crashes just wasted 30 minutes of my time. They started spawning back fast though, and after Rudalong the apocalyptic dragon discovered electricity, I arrived at my destination. Wait, that's not a beaver. I don't know how this fish stick spawned in the lake, but rest in peace to the beaver lineage. I thought my game crashed again, but I was actually just getting 5 FPS due to Mr. Salmon's morning hurricane. Anyways, it was time for the heist. So I inspected the beaver dam, which alerted the authorities, and I pretended to make my escape, causing their simple minds to chase me off this waterfall, which bought me just enough time to rob the rest of the dams. I would also like to make a public service announcement. Always drop wood after looting beaver dams on public servers, because if you do not, I will personally break your kneecaps. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. When I arrived back at my humble cave-like abode, I had a pretty solid amount of paste and some more pearls, and all it costed was destroying the homes of some innocent civilians. Enough metal was cooked in the 4 forges at this point, so I began crafting the rest of the electronics, and now all I need is polymer. I could go organic, but I had enough paste, so I took Gryffindor and farmed some obsidian, crafted half of the poly, and then did all that one more time. On day 47, the poly was done, but I still needed to wait on some metal to cook. So while I was waiting, I took Argent 47 back to the mountain to farm some more metal, because I eventually wanted to make an industrial forge, because I don't enjoy waiting 84 years for metal to cook. On the way home, I experienced my hourly game crash 2 times. I think I chose the worst base spot on this map. Anyways, I had about 1800 raw metal cooking up, and I already had enough smelted to craft the chem bench. I didn't do the S+ version because I'm a simpleton and I keep forgetting that mods exist. But for some reason, the generator was not powering the chem bench or the air conditioners. So I initiated some advanced troubleshooting technique. Have you tried turning it off and back on again? And after some intense detective work, I realized that the cable wasn't even attached to the generator because it snapped sideways. And the air conditioners haven't been working this entire time. No wonder I needed so many torches. Anyways, it's all good now. And I bulk crafted narcotics at the speed of light and then moved them into my new Tranks++ mortar and pestle. The Demogorgon from Stranger Things has 750k torpor though, and he will be mine. I just needed to farm roughly 13,000 more narcotics, no big deal. But this time, I was prepared. I was doing good on narco berries, but I realized that we were all out of decomposing meat. And I didn't really have any tames that would work for a meat run, so I made some 10 times Trank arrows, loaded up Gryffindor, and I searched for like the entire day because every single Rex and Theory got spawn killed by a kaiju. But eventually I found this level 85 Rex, but then he picked a fight with some Brontos and got himself deleted. It took like 20 more minutes, but eventually I found an okay level Rex. It was another 85. I knocked him out and I heard a race car explode on the prehistoric freeway. I waited around for a bit, and after adopting a new pet alpha compy, I ordered him to commit war crimes on the locals to farm some spoiled meat. Well, raw meat that I will then proceed to spoil. But then, after I got dismounted by 4 Microraptors who were coordinating with a Colossalus that randomly appeared, and I almost didn't exist anymore. Luckily, this dude is slow, both physically and mentally, and miraculously, I was able to cryo my Rex and fly away seconds before his colossal-sized foot caused my death. Kaiju were still literally everywhere, but I can't let that stop me. Once I get these narcos and I tame a Demogorgon, it'll all be worth it. Okay, that took a lot longer than expected, but after 5 days of hard work, I had a whole lot of nasty rotten meat in here and a whole lot of narco berries in here. I think it'll equal out somewhere around 600k torp, but I was still waiting on the crafting to finish. So I went outside and Callisto was here with only 1.2k health left. I could finish this dude off. But before I did anything, he randomly decided to change course and duel the Akira Sorosu. He absolutely destroyed that man, but then an albino Sorosu swooped in and finished off the beast. I guess I won't be killing a kaiju today. Anyways, after my game crashed, twice, most of the narcotics were finished, and it kind of looked like I would have enough to deal around 600k torpor, but just to be safe and to have some more options, I took Hannah Brontana out to a recent opening in the Yellow Flowers. Swung her 20-foot tail a few times, slot-capped Argent 47 with sleep berries, crafted some more narcotics in my chem bench, and then I repeated that entire process one more time. I had a lot of extra berries, so I just put 1,000 pounds on one, and after they finished crafting, it would put me around 800k torpor worth of narcotics. But then, while looking in the mortar and pestle, I realized something. Something good, actually. The trank arrows and the trank darts specifically do more torpor than the plain narcotics. Like, a lot more torpor. Like 5 times the amount of torpor. So not only does this mean I'm dumb because I already knew that and I somehow forgot, but I also have enough narcotics here to deal over 3 million torpor. I'm rich. I wish I would have realized this before I spent 4 entire days as a humble berry farmer, but I guess having too many drugs is actually a pretty good problem to have. I needed to actually make the trank darts though, so I crafted some simple rifle ammo, and I threw some metal into the tranks plus mortar and pestle to make 15 100k shots and 10 more 20k shots. I still had another entire chem bench of narcotics crafting, and things were looking great. Anyways, it was finally time to tame a kaiju. It only took me 54 days, so I headed out and started scouting around, and I found this owl-shaped beast in the snow. He looked super cool, and having a flyer first could make it easier to get a stronger land kaiju. So I headed back. Famuto was stalking me as I entered my cave, and I grabbed some of the 100k torp darts. Yeah, it's a bit overkill because Owl Beast only has 60k torp, but I wanted to make sure he went down in one shot because he can fly, and flying means death. I don't, like death. So I pulled out my long neck and I approached the beast. Alright, I'm going to sleep. The next day, after my 30-hour power nap, I loaded back in and I loaded a dart into my long neck. But once I approached the owl-shaped beast, my game crashed. Alright, I'm not going anywhere near the canyon. So I started heading towards the desert to find Horus, that flaming flyer guy. Crashed 2 more times, by the way. Found Dr. Doofenshmirtz's evil secret lair. And when I continued, I saw my mortal enemy Greg spawning over in the distance. But then when I arrived in the desert, there was another owl beast. They aren't set to spawn here, so it must have been the very low random chance of global spawns, but I'll take it. I loaded a sleepy potion into my long-necked rifle, and I took my shot. Oh no. I only brought 2 tranks, and if I missed this next shot, Gryffindor was going to die. Let's go! I just noticed it says work in progress. I picked the one creature that isn't finished, dude. Anyways, I also forgot that they eat kaiju cells, not just meat, and I didn't bring any. Okay, stay right there. Please don't wake up. So I rushed home as fast as Gryffindor's wings could flap. grabbed an exponentially terrible yellow drop on the way, grabbed a stack of dead kaiju cells, glided back to the desert, and then gave them to the owl fella. Oh, wait. He wants enhanced kaiju cells. I struggle with reading comprehension, apparently. I apologize if some of you were yelling at me through the screen. Since I can't tame him, I tried to kill the owl beast and at least check him off my list. But his torpor was dropping insanely fast, and there was just no way, so I had to abandon the tame. I didn't look up anything for this mod at all because I wanted to figure it all out myself. But I had no idea how to get these other kaiju cells. Maybe I need to find one that wants dead kaiju cells first, and then I'll figure it out from there. Wait, are you actually serious, bro? I could have tamed him. Okay, well, now I know. When you're typing your comment calling me an idiot, just keep in mind that you're right, but also this is the first mod that I've ever played and I didn't look up anything. Okay? Unfortunately, the kaiju beast was already awake, but I needed to craft some of these kaiju cells anyways. So I headed back to base, crashed again, and I actually did have 243 element in my smithy from harvesting random dead kaiju, since they have beef with everyone all the time. I guess that's the one good thing about having these insane spawn rates. I also figured out that you craft element in the element crafting station mod, so I decided to make some electronics and polymer to craft one for later. That is expensive, just for 30 element? I used the element shards that I already had to craft some active kaiju cells, and looking at the engrams, the recipes seem to build off of each other. You basically have to use dead to make active, to make enhanced, to make evolved. And each one costs more and more element. The kaiju blood, which is what the Demogorgon wants, is absolutely insane on element cost, by the way. I don't even have a tech rep to turn element into shards for more, so I'm being bottlenecked by the active cells right now because they don't let you craft them with actual element. Before I turn these active cells into enhanced cells though, I needed to scout and make sure of what I was gonna tame. I could go for this Akuki Rai with these active cells, but honestly, he doesn't look very good. The owl beast next to my base is still here, and away from the Crashfest Canyon now, and I could use him to farm Sorosu and other smaller kaiju for enhanced cells. So despite his work in progress label, I made my decision. So I turned my active cells into 13 enhanced cells, grabbed 5 Trank Darts in case I'm still bad, and after picking up this Bronto egg and eating the whole thing in one bite, I flew out towards the beast, crashed again, and then I approached the owl being, loaded a dart into my weapon of mass destruction, missed, and then I knocked him out cold in one shot to the spinal cord. Honestly, this Trank mod feels extremely overpowered, but I'm not complaining. It said he needed 9 cells, so I just put all 13 in, and I sat there for a while. The torpor was dropping really fast though, and he still hadn't even touched his kaiju cells, kind of like that Sorosu from earlier. I really hope this isn't a trend of kaiju all taking 3 to 4 hours to tame, but at this rate, this guy's definitely gonna require narcotics, and a lot of them. I really hope it doesn't completely drain my entire stash. So after passing 3 door campers in front of my cave, I made some 8k and 20k torp narcotics because I wasn't sure how many I actually needed, but hopefully this is enough. Fey Relic. I don't know what that is. The owl beast was already down 30k torpor at this point, and he hasn't even touched his kaiju cells. So after executing the terror squad, I did some quick maths. It would cost me over 9,000 narcotics just to tame this guy. I'm not really sure if this is worth it. So I fed the beast a 500 times drug, and I went back to grab Alpha Copy. My goal was still to tame or kill every kaiju, and at least I can get the kill and check the first kaiju off my list. But when I arrived, Titania the Monarch Queen and her thousands of subjects were right next to the beast. But since the Monarch King over there was a passive tame, I took a huge risk and tried to see if these guys were as well, or if they would aggro me and brutally murder me instead. What a gamble. Luckily, I was right, and they were friendly. I'm not dead yet. So I threw out Alpha Copy and started munching on an owl-shaped beast. But this dragon dude kept placing his tail right in front of my bite, doing everything possible to make me start the fight, so he has an excuse for spiting my existence. I didn't fall for it though, and I successfully timed my hits in between his pirouettes, so I wouldn't hurt this guy. And after a very high calorie meal, the owl beast was defeated, marking kaiju number 1 out of 47. Only 46 more to go. I farmed some more Kaiju cells, black pearls, and element from that man's corpse, and I started flying back to my base. But it turns out, even though the minions were friendly on their own, when the Monarch Queen saw me, she ordered every single one of her simps to remove me from the premises. I ran to my cave hoping they were too big to fit. They were not. Okay, wait, no, let's go back this way. Come on, guys. But they actually weren't attacking me. Their queen wasn't here anymore, so they're off the clock, I guess. But now I have a house full of ticking time bombs. Guys, I wasn't really expecting any guests today. I almost just lost my entire base, and I've done some really dumb things in the past, but kiting these cretins into here has got to be one of the absolute stupidest things I've ever done in a video. Luckily for me, though, after a few minutes, they all just disappeared because I guess they were too far away from their queen, maybe. And back at my crafting station, I had this entire inventory of narcotics. Everything I needed to tame a bigger kaiju was here, but I had no reference as to how long it would take or how many narcotics it would take to deal with the torpor dropping. I guess I would just have to commit and go with my gut. I fed this molten Sorosu, and while he began his 1 month digestion, I quickly checked my settings just to make sure something with the hunger wasn't messed up, because it is really weird that it takes 45 minutes for him to eat again. Everything looked okay though, and only the basic stuff like 5 times taming and 3 times harvesting rates was modified. So I loaded back in and grabbed all of my narcotics, and I decided to find something and just go for the tame. I really hope I have enough. Sorosu was still on an extreme oxygen diet, and this purple drop gave me a BP for a crop plot, which is probably the second best gift I've ever been given. But then something crazy happened. Something that should have happened a long time ago. I used my eyes, and I noticed that a Guanot can be tamed with only 1 exceptional kibble instead of the Kaiju cells like most of these guys. I probably shouldn't have eaten Hannah Brontana's egg earlier. And then right next to him, Siren Head only needed 1 exceptional kibble. This is revolutionary. I might come back with kibble later because 1 bite taming can't possibly take extra narcos, right? But I kept searching for now, and I also found a Mothra, which is a passive tame. Mothra snack. I didn't know what a Mothra snack was, so I searched for it in my crafting recipes, and sure enough, there it was, Mothra snack. I should probably get some crops growing. It would have been nice if I figured this stuff out earlier, but I was too busy struggling to survive. Anyways, I found a leatherback clapping some peasants, and he wants 2 leatherback stew, which I searched, and I can actually make it right now. It just eats fish mixed with leather, which makes sense actually. This was the way to go, 100%. So with some newfound motivation and a new sense of direction, I journeyed back to my hometown to make some leather stew for my first date with Mr. Leatherback. The Sorosu was still on hunger strike, but I no longer cared about that guy. I had a new objective. So I placed down this fridge that I made earlier and forgot about so the Kaiju cells wouldn't spoil, shrunk Hannah Brontana to fit inside a sphere, and headed out to farm some stew. On day 58, I took Alpha Compy to SeaWorld where he ordered some sushi for stew cooking purposes, and our second stop was for Hannah Brontana to farm some blueberries, you know, to give the stew a little bit of sweetness. We returned back to base, and I let them out to stretch their legs, grabbed this Bronto egg for kibble, and I proceeded to craft some stew using raw sushi, blueberries, and skin. Not exactly edible in my opinion, but Leatherback is gonna love it. I then noticed that this stew spoils in 10 minutes. So I immediately sprinted 3 steps over to the fridge, threw it in there, farmed some more hide, and spent my last 1,000 hide on an extra stew just in case it spoils. And now, it was time. I grabbed the trink darts and I set out, keeping the stew in the fridge for now. When I arrived at the cove, I saw my target finish off a mutated lizard just in time for me to strike. So I pulled out my trusty long-necked rifle, hovered above the man, and started shooting. Controlling flyers in first person with a weapon equipped made me experience what it's like to not have thumbs, but he was distracted fighting something, and I managed to land 7 out of 8 of my shots. One of them, he even jumped up right into my barrel, so I mean, it was kind of impossible to miss that one. But once he fell into a peaceful slumber, I realized that he was fighting the Sorosu, who is now ruining my taming effectiveness. And to make matters worse, Greg and his ex-wife arrived via the ocean. I wanted to run, but I have to hold my ground. This waste of oxygen needs to be kited away from my leather bag. I kind of just flew around for a couple minutes trying to figure out what I was gonna do, but then Greg killed the Zorosu and some random lava golems eliminated Greg. All of my problems just solved themselves. My heroes weren't attacking Leatherback either, and some of them just walked into the ocean. Y'all going on a road trip? There was also another Leatherback here, but two creatures from the same species won't harm each other, I'm pretty sure, and Leatherback's 700k torp is dropping way slower than the owl beast. So I decided to let his hunger build up for a little bit and come back later with the stew. There's 3 Famutos. I had some time to kill while Leatherback builds up an appetite, so I repaired my tools and took out Argent 47 to farm some crop plots. This wasn't my first time using the awesome spyglass mod. I would have had a full botanical garden set up by now, but I guess it's better late than never. So I slashed these bushes for fiber, beat up some trees for thatch and wood, and I mined the rock for stone. I crafted 4 crop plots, but when I made it back... Bro, get out of my house, dude! I kind of just stood there and watched, helplessly. The fate of everyone I love is in the hands of ARK's AI targeting system. This guy was doing incomprehensible maneuvers and making ear-retching noises. And there was also a Leatherback up there, so I think it's safe to say my foundations don't work, although they're definitely blocking resource spawns. Don't mind me, just gonna squeeze right past you there. The Chitin decided to go fight Arkme, and I was so relieved that he did. Thank you. Inside my gate, Chopstick was running for his life, so I commanded him to stop and parked him by the gate. That way I could use his death message as an alarm system.
Each time when I come...
Anyways, it was time to set up my crops, but it doesn't rain inside of the cave, obviously, and I really didn't want to build irrigation, so I found this safe ledge outside. I feel bad for that parasaur, man. And I placed down the crop plot. For some reason, you can't stack the S+ crop plots. I thought it was a feature, but I guess not. So I had to make 3 more foundations, and everything was set up, but before I planted the crops, I wanted to go check on Leatherback. I can't just leave my child unsupervised for too long. So I grabbed some Narcos and his favorite fish, blueberry skin stew, and I made Gryffindor hold the repulsive concoction because the spoil timer is 40 minutes inside his inventory instead of mine. With the extra stew, I was wondering if it was possible to breed Kaiju. I guess the only way to find out is to try it, but that's a problem for another day. Anyways, when I made it over, the Leatherback was gone. I'm just kidding, it took a second for him to render in. Oh, thank God. There were 3 wild Leatherbacks here, and our friend had barely even lost 1k torpor. This is what I initially expected when I knocked out the owl beast, but that one was just stupid, to be honest. Anyways, this means that some of the Kaiju can easily be starve tamed without any babysitting, which is amazing. His food had only dropped a little bit, but I could see straight down his esophagus, and I could tell he was hungry. So I put the 2 leather-filled stews in his inventory, and he was hungry enough to consume one of them. It looked like it filled about 50 hunger, so we still had about half a day before this guy would finish. Should be good on the spoil timers though. All 3 of the other Leatherbacks were to the right, so I simply flew to the left, which put all 3 of the leather triplets out of render. And then I just kind of sat here peacefully, waiting on the bodybuilder to change teams. And about 10 minutes later, he woke up. Let's go, man. Leatherback domesticated. 2 out of 47 Kaiju defeated. He immediately started raining destruction upon a flock of orange rocks, and he took them all out in like 10 seconds. Lava Golem corroded. 3 out of 47 Kaiju defeated. I started testing out the controls with the normal attack being the hit/clap. The secondary was him throwing a boulder that he just pulls out of another dimension or something, and clicking down on my right stick did like this floor slam / digging for buried treasure type thing. It wasn't jumping when I pressed A though, so I'm not really sure about that big slam that we keep seeing the wild ones do. I then proceeded to make him fit inside of a circular object that is 1/1000th his size and flew back to base on Gryffindor. We finally did it, man. Before testing out Leatherback, I brought a Hannah Montana into the trenches to farm some seeds for my crops. Now, all I needed was some fertilizer, and, well, We all know where that comes from. So I tried to take donations for the fertilizer fund, but even after using the communal Pteranodon saddle to check every single one of these guys, nobody wanted to make any donations. Don't make me get out the laxatives. So while I waited on that, I brought my new pet to a somewhat safe area to test. And just by running through the field, Leatherback did thousands of damage by stepping on his foes. I killed my foes by using my toes. Wow, that was kind of cringe. Anyways, this area was getting more and more dangerous as more and more kaiju were spawning, but I can't get one-shotted anymore, so I wasn't really that scared. I started testing out the different abilities, and the normal hit doing a few thousand damage is reliable, but I still can't figure out the jump slam. And I was still messing around with the controls, but even with Leatherback, there's comparably strong kaiju everywhere, and I'm still scared to land pretty much anywhere. I just had to assume that they won't one-shot me anymore, so I took a high donation from this parasaur to make some parachutes. That way I can actually dismount without committing deletion. And I started scouting for weaker kaiju to check off my hit list and make me feel powerful. It was tough because everywhere is covered in death. I found this rogue Jaeger who would be a perfect target, but then a skull crawler backflipped out of the floor and one-shotted him. So I headed to the desert, or maybe it wasn't so overspawned. But when I arrived, Greg was still being a hater and he was waiting for me to attack on sight. So I put Gryffindor into my wallet and I summoned my Leatherback. Bring it on, Gregory. It was a bit unfair how he got his ex-wife involved in our showdown, but it didn't take long before she was his ex-wife. And the fight was going pretty well until this tech Gojuran rendered in right behind me and started revving up his engine. He actually was doing damage, and this guy is way too strong, so we had to improvise. Come here, Greg. Over here. By Mr. Behemoth. And after a few more giant leathery slaps, Greg was no longer a menace to society, which marks 4 out of 47 kaiju reduced to leather. So after happily harvesting Greg's corpse, I ran to safety as Tech Gojuran and Behemoth were battling it out. Leatherback was below half health now, but he did level up 58 times from that. So I parachuted down, loaded up Gryffindor with Greg's wealth, and fled the scene. Brought 300 pounds of black pearls back to my element crafting station, and I'm gonna start my lore book collection here inside of Greg's inventory. Apparently Greg led the fight against corruption back in the day, but I'm not buying that. We have to burn the propaganda. But anyways, now that my inventory wasn't full of loot that I stole from Greg, on day 61, I used my new powerful friend to get my revenge on the world. Carnivorous plant, neutralized. Leonardo da Vinci, the one with anorexia, no longer starving himself. That was the primordial Sorosu, by the way. I also fought the albino one, but his 4 Colossalis bodyguards showed up, and the other Sorosu would one-shot me if I jumped down to my Griffin, so I eliminated the albino scorpion. 7 out of 47, by the way. And I made an insane MLG play and cryoed the Leatherback, parachuted away, whistled, and mounted the Griffin, leaving the Colossalis battalion in the dust. Akuki Urai, deceased. Terminat Queen, overthrown. Exo Jaeger, abolished. Arkney, dissected. Ow. Tech Giga Mammoth guy, dismantled. Stop trying to steal my kills, Colossalis. Why are there so many Gregs? Oh no. Callisto, the Berenstein Bear, incinerated. Akira Sorosu, excommunicated. The spawns were getting absolutely insane at this point. But I was spyglassing Godzilla here in the Highlands, and he wants 4 atomic fish meat. This might not be safe to eat. Can y'all be quiet? I'm trying to read. Look how much broccoli there is. Anyways, after running away from that, I was considering taming Godzilla because I need something stronger than Leatherback for like 50% of the kaiju in this mod. In the Redwoods, I tried to kill this Gigamoth Mammoth guy here, but the issue I keep having is I can't avoid being targeted by the whole Mafia every time I try to land. So I had to run away. I was able to fight Fenrir here, and it was easy because of the damage multiplier against him. I don't know why, but some things I do an insane amount of damage to, and others do basically nothing. And getting that revenge on Fenrir marks 15 out of 47 kaiju. I got aggroed by this Iguanon, but Leatherback can outrun him pretty easily, so we lived another day. I used said another day to dive into the desert, where it looked surprisingly peaceful. It wasn't. As soon as I flew 5 feet forward, where 4 destroyers would render in along with the entire Roman army. How is my game not crashing right now? I found another Gigamoth stuck in this rock and eviscerated him. 16 out of 47, by the way. And then I found a Rogue Jaeger and did 10,000 damage to his operating system. 17 out of 47. It is pretty interesting how I do 10,000 sometimes, or sometimes I do like 500 depending on the target. But Leatherback is down to 100k health now, and day 62 was coming to an end. So I headed back to my cave, crashed multiple times, so I reset the spawns again. And since I can't find a dung beetle because there's like no chance of them surviving in this world, I decided to make 2 compost bins, grab a bunch of stinky stuff, place the bins down, and put the stinky stuff in with some thatch to make fertilizer for my crops. It was gonna take a while though, so I wanted to go back out and look for some more kaiju to kill. But first, I needed to heal Leatherback because he's only on 80k health. But the regular method of just force feeding meat would take literal years to heal 500k. So I decided to check out Granty's kaiju video and see what he did about this. Shout out to Granty, by the way. He had a lot of mods installed, but he was using a potion for healing, and he also had a hunger reducer to combat the 3-hour-long tames that I was having problems with earlier. So I gave in and made my run easier by installing those same mods. I'm only going to use the healing potion from this, by the way. The rest look kind of overpowered, but I need cooked prime meat to make it. So I made a grill, took Leatherback for a walk where we stole prime meat from this family of Brontos. I cooked said prime meat. I took Hannah Brontana to farm some stem berries for stimulants and some mayho berries, and then I crafted the health potion. I had everything that I would need for 2 more potions, except for rare flowers. I could always make some more later though, because right now I wanted to test out Leatherback's other attacks. Yeah, I figured it out. The issue is, I am a worthless controller player, apparently. I looked at the mod page while installing those mods, and I figured out that you can only do these on your keyboard. I just have to press Shift-C when I want to clap some peasants, or I can press X to dig a hole, or I can press Q to do the big jump slam, or I can press Shift Q for a literal EMP. I can't believe I've just been doing basic slaps this entire time. And to top it all off, he can even do emotes. And for some reason, the developer taught him to do a Fortnite dance. I don't know what I just witnessed, but I kind of enjoyed it. On day 64, after feeding my Leatherback a very healthy potion, I decided to take on Beast Stallion. I wasn't sure if this was a good idea because he has so many minions and some of them have 20k health, but since I can now use all of Leatherback's attacks and they do a lot more damage, I decided to go for it. Yo, I'm gonna do the explosion. Dude, this is awesome. And just like that, Beast Stallion got spontaneously combusted, marking Kaiju number 18 out of 47. I was still scared of the things with more health than me, like this Iguanont with 800k, but I feel a whole lot more confident in Leatherback's abilities now. So after dropping off the Black Pearls at my base, I headed out to finally pick on someone my own size. I wasn't sure who I was gonna fight to the death first, but as soon as I saw Behemoth, I instantly knew. So I cryoed my griffin and I gave Leatherback an inspirational speech. Alright, you leather guy, end him. I dropped my controller and started clacking abilities on my keyboard, but after one hit, Behemoth stunned me. I realized this might be more difficult than I thought, but after recovering, I did some claps, some stomps, some jumps, and I comboed up on that man, the alleged legendary beast of Monster Island. His health was dropping fast. Everything was going perfect. Until this happened. Oh no, he dismounted me. I tried my best to stay alive, but one of his AoE attacks took me out. When I respawned, I grabbed my PT and flew over as fast as I could, parked him on this cliff, and sprinted back to the fight. Honestly, Leatherback would have been fine just 1v1ing on his own, but I do a lot more damage controlling the abilities, and Behemoth started running away. You scared, buddy? I got a chase down block and started comboing up, but he still managed to dismount me. Again. This time though, I was able to climb lower on this leathery back and survive for the full 10 seconds. And after remounting, I did a quick clap and a jump, and just like that, Behemoth had gone extinct. Yes! And that marks deceased Kaiju number 19 out of 47. Apparently, he's the reason dinosaurs are extinct. That's not cool, man. Anyways, I harvested a ton of element from that, and it was definitely worth it. and Leatherback still had half health. I kind of wanted to go again. So I started sprinting down the beach, stepped on a few useless life forms on the way, and I found this guy with like 8 heads, and I was kind of jealous because I only have 1. So I put down my controller and pressed Shift X on my keyboard. 20 out of 47. And he dropped a lot of silica pearls. So after that, I crashed again. And then I forgot to unpause my recording again because when I loaded in, Skullcrawler spawned right next to me. He has 400k health, and I wasn't even gonna fight this guy, but I can't outrun him, and he assaulted me. But as you can see, I won. And that marks Kaiju number
21
out of 47. But I'm kind of mad that I didn't record the whole thing. The crashing is affecting my mental capabilities. Anyways, Leatherback's health was getting low, so I started heading back to base. Clapped this Siren Head's alarm system on the way. Yo, why did he die in that position? Bro's got them pearly whites. Siren Head was number 22 out of 47. I also found Horus on my way home though, and I 2-shotted that guy. So now I have 23 out of 47. On day 65, I arrived at my humble abode, and after unloading some big profit and replacing my armor, I headed back to the beaver dams, killed Fenrir and some beavers, and then looted them for their rare flowers. I needed these to make a health potion, and after using Leatherback to extort some Brontos for their prime meat, I crafted 3 more health potions to heal Leatherback. There's still 24 more Kaiju terrorizing the ARK right now, and I have to take them down. Right outside on the beach, I found an Iguanodon, and like I said earlier, I was scared of these guys because he has more health than my Leatherback. But I think I've seen enough proof at this point to justify fighting. The fight took about 5 minutes, and it was kind of boring to be honest. Iguanodon doesn't have any interesting attacks, and I just kind of cycled through mine. And I was a bit under 200k health at this point, but eventually the Iguanodon was defeated. 24 out of 47 Kaiju decimated. After that, I crashed again, and then I found this molten Sorosu. He tried to call in backup, but I had leather backup. And after stealing his life force, that marks tame number 25 out of 47. Leatherback was on roughly 170k health now, and I found this Colossalus. I wanted to fight him, of course, and it's probably smart to heal up first, but he has less than 300k health, and I wanted to save my potion. So against my better judgment, I went for it. I waited on his Steam Blast to be on cooldown and started clapping the red Kaiju. It seems like he only has the Steam Blast and this like rock kick which barely did anything, and his health was dropping really fast. Leatherback's got that dog in him, but then he used the Steam Blast. Oh no. I was still alive for now, but the steam made me fall asleep. Honestly, it's not a big deal because Leatherback can finish this himself as always, but then while respawning, my game crashed. It's a bit cheap since I got to retry the fight, but this time around when he did the Steam Blast, I ran away to avoid being knocked out, and I also figured out that the clap attack interrupts steam abilities and stuns, which is amazing. And just like that, Colossalus had been emancipated from existence. That marks Kaiju number 26 out of 47. He dropped this blueprint for a Kaiju torpor regenerator, so I was assuming maybe one of these fights will knock out my Kaiju and I have to use it to keep him awake or something like that. I'm not sure, but I'll hold on to it for now. I started running back to base, spawn trapped Greg for fun, and I was searching for my next target. So after my game crashed again, I found this molded from Resident Evil 7, or Hedorah, who looks scary, but he only has 450k health. And then my game crashed. I went back to base because it took me an hour to record 15 minutes with the crashes, and there was some fertilizer ready, so I used that and one of Hannah Brontana's large feces to plant 3 out of 4 of the crops. I tried some things in the spawn code to disable spawn animations. I'm hoping that helps the crashing. And then I traveled to the swamp to take on the massive Hedorah. After using one of my health potions to heal Leatherback, the fight began. Hedorah was not very well designed, to be honest. He had this poison shot, which was pretty much the only thing he did for the first half of the fight, and it didn't do much, but it added like a damage over time effect. And then when he started getting lower health, he started doing this laser coming out of his eyeball thing, exclusively his right eyeball, by the way, never the left one. That attack tried to target me directly, I'm pretty sure, but he couldn't hit me, and he never did more than like 100k damage to Leatherback. And me forcing Hedorah to take a shower marks Kaiju number 27 out of 47. There was only 20 left, but they're all kind of insane. A fragment from Hedorah. It's still moving. I had a spreadsheet going to keep track of all the kaiju that I still need, and most of the easy ones were already out of the way, but there were still a few that I needed to find. So I made another lap around the map, searching for Faust, Zionia, Goliath, or even Typhoon. I didn't find much since the spawns were recently reset, but over in the Highlands, I got another look at Godzilla and the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, both of which I would like to tame so I could assemble an army to fight the more difficult bosses, such as Woodalong, Ghidorah, or even Doug with his 30 million health. I actually kind of want to tame Doug. I needed about 10 of the big 500 times strength darts for Godzilla's 1 million torpor, and about 7 for the Pacific Rim Kaiju, 4 atomic fish meat for Godzilla, and 1 altered Kaiju blood for this fella. So I kept that in mind, and I headed back along the edge of the snow, because there's still 1 Sorosu left, the Ice Berry. I didn't find any, but I did find Titania, the Monarch Queen. Said Monarch Queen has been dethroned, 28 out of 47. So after cryoing Leatherback and parachuting down per usual, I continued on and I found Goliath by Green Owl. So I re-summoned my back made from leather and started with a boulder. But after a clap and a jump, he died before he could even attack. And Goliath being melted marks tame number 29 out of 47. Before cryoing Leatherback, there was a raptor assaulting a horse, so I saved his life and took it at the same time. There were still a couple more easy kaiju left, but I decided to go ahead and prepare for my next tame. So on day 67, I crafted all of my black 500 times narcotics into Trink Darts, spoiled some meat to craft a few thousand more narcotics with the narco berries I had left, made a few more black 500 times narcotics, which then became 500 times darts, and now I had 17 of these Trink Darts, which is enough to do roughly 2 million torpor. And the atomic fish meat, which Godzilla loves very much, is crafted using 100 element and 1 fish meat. So I grabbed a pike and I flew out to the ocean, picked a target, and went fishing the old-fashioned way. I grabbed some element and some narcotics just in case I wanted to craft kaiju blood for the Demogorgon instead. I just kept the element on me because I'm not going to craft any atomic fish meat just yet. I don't know how long the spoil timer will last, and element lasts forever. I'm literally bringing my entire arsenal of Trink Darts though, and I've never even seen what Godzilla is capable of, so this is going to be interesting. As I arrived in the Highlands, Godzilla rendered in right next to a Gojoran, and there was also Titania the Monarch King here. So I summoned Leatherback, avoided Gojoran's engine explosion, and I did the EMP blast thing, which one-shotted every dragon in the tri-state area and reunited the Monarch King with his queen. I had the royal power couple marked as the same thing on my list though, so that's still Kaiju 29 out of 47. Anyways, now it was time. So I whistled Leatherback to dissect this Fenrir. And then for some reason, there was another Fenrir, so Leatherback went in for round 2. But when I walked back over, Gojoran was standing on a mountain of his deceased enemies, but I didn't see Godzilla. Somehow he was all the way over there, sunbathing on the beach. So I whistled Leatherback. Come on, Leather buddy. And then my game crashed. I made it over to Godzilla, but there was a Demogorgon chasing me to the ends of the earth. So I kited him off this cliff next to the 3 Broccolis, one of which is drowning at the bottom of the ocean right now. Oh, Pacific Rim has a swimming animation. That's actually really cool. But for some reason, there was not only a Famuto, but like 4 other Demogorgons that just spawned out of thin air. And I just kind of sat here literally all night watching them fight this Gojoran. For some reason, Godzilla was like aggro to them, but he didn't look like he was fighting back at all. And there's no way I can knock him out right now in the middle of all that chaos, so I continued to spectate and placed all my bets on the Gojoran. And he actually did eliminate basically everyone. But it's clearly not a safe area to knock this Godzilla out right now, as there's Broccoli, Famuto, and Demogorgons lurking around every corner ready to catch me lacking. So I went over here and decided to knock out this Pacific Rim Kaiju instead, who was separated from the pack. After my first shot, he started running to his mother, but luckily he got aggroed on this Fenrir and wasn't able to be hit by it. This made it extremely easy for me to knock him out, but what I didn't account for, however, was that Fenrir would keep attacking him after he was unconscious, absolutely destroying my taming effectiveness. I tried to kite him away, but he was stuck inside this man's hitbox, so I pulled out Leatherback and did a quick clap, hurting the taming effectiveness, of course, but I'm not going to hurt it as much as Fenrir chomping on this man the entire time. I also exterminated whatever scuffle this was going on between a robot giraffe and Siren Head, and I had everything on me for the 1 altered kaiju blood required to tame this guy. Everything except for a blood pack. And to make a syringe to extract my own blood, I needed 1 kite. What is going on over there? I ignored that, and after using leatherback to farm some keratin from the sallow, I made a syringe, injected it into my forearm, mixed my own blood into a cauldron filled with 200 narcotics and 50 elements, and fed what I would consider hardcore drugs to this Demogorgon as a symbol of my friendship. He absolutely loved the concoction, and that marks Kaiju number 30 out of 47. I decided to test out some of my new second best friend's abilities. Honestly, he's kinda weak. Not only does he have less health than Leatherback, but the basic punch on this Bronto only did like 1k damage and took several hits. And his little drop kick that I tested on Terrence's friend from high school did like 5k. But I also spammed a bunch of combinations of Shift, X, C, and Q on my keyboard, and he does have all of these other special abilities too, so maybe some of those are better. Anyways, for now, I vacuumed up my Kaiju brothers into their spherical cages, and I headed back over to Godzilla. It's so sketchy over here. Like, I have enough tranks to even miss 2 shots and still get the tame, but there's the Battle of the Vegans going on over there, and 2 Gojoran right behind me over here. I also didn't know what was gonna happen when I shoot my shot, but I woke up on the fearless side of the bed this morning, so I pulled out the longest neck of all my rifles, and I shot the king of all Kaiju. At first, he just kind of stomped on a rock, and this was a great sign, so I shot him again. But then he started turning blue. I don't know what that means, but I assumed it was a sign to back off, so I backed off a little bit. And as he shot lasers out of his mouth that I definitely didn't want to come into contact with, I kind of sat there and waited until it was over, and then I went back in for another shot. Yeah, honestly, I deserved that. I genuinely thought that was gonna be easy, but I was mistaken. It was not easy, and just like that, Gryffindor, the creature responsible for like 90% of my success, was atomically blasted by Godzilla. So I decided to craft the rest of my narcotics into a 50 times and 2 10 times trank darts, make another rifle with an even longer neck, and then set out to tame one of the griffins outside my base. They were both level 20. So I guess this painfully slow Pteranodon will have to work for now, and I set sail to the Highlands. I kind of need to get my body back because it has both of my Kaiju in it. Luckily, Godzilla had roamed away from the location of my demise, and I found Gryffindor, or what's left of him. It was a really good griffin, like stat-wise and loyalty. Anyways, I had to drop my entire inventory basically, including my armor, because Pteranodons have basically no weight. I saddled up and I started flying back, but when I landed for Stam right here, I saw this Famuto. They have like 700k health with less than 200k torpor, and can be tamed with prime meat. This is way easier than anything I've tamed yet, and Famuto is actually better than my leatherback. So I hopped off Terrence and pulled out my long neck, but then Terrence just randomly flew straight to his death into Famuto. Bro, what are you doing? I parachuted over and started spamming whistles, but bro did not care. And then I realized that I was just dangling here in front of a Kaiju, and well, yeah, it didn't end well. So I respawned in the Highlands this time, got slaughtered by a fairy tale dragon, but after spawning Highlands North, I managed to run back over, and Fenrir was on top of my bag, and somehow Terrence was still alive. I was spamming whistles, but it turns out he's on ignore group whistle or something, I don't know. But I whistled him directly, and after just sitting here for like 10 seconds, dude, fly over here. What is wrong with you? He eventually decided to not die. Thank you. The PT was super low health. I'm hungry and my bag is still being guarded by Fenrir. But after waiting around a while, I managed to grab my stuff next to this siren head in his death pose, and I decided to just get out of there before something bad happened again. But lo and behold, as I was leaving, something bad happened again. I got too close to the snow and Woodalong, the apocalyptic dragon, saw me. Normally, aggroing Kaiju isn't even a problem because I can just outrun everything on my Griffin, but Pteranodons are another story. I had to dismount Terrence, and while he got burned alive behind me, as he wanted to, I guess, I parachuted off the mountain, hoping that Terrence had enough meat on his bones for Woodalong to not have an appetite. Yeah, Woodalong still wanted to murder me. I was also thirsty, and I was running quickly out of stamina. I didn't want to throw out my leatherback because Woodalong is considered one of the boss Kaiju, and he would probably lose. So even though I managed to get somewhat away, I was somehow on fire inside of the water, and I got deleted. I only had 3 PTs left at base, so if this next one dies, I'm gonna have to start breeding again. But right now, my priority is getting my stuff back. So I flew back over. There's 2 apocalyptic dragons now, and they both want to murder me, by the way. Honestly, I can't even explain how I managed to survive this, but I think it's just because they kept getting distracted on random wild dinosaurs. I did figure out, though, that they won't fly up very high, so I managed to kite them into the canyon, and they couldn't get back out. I got really lucky that they can't fly, and I was able to get my stuff back pretty easily. Well, easily isn't the right word because Terrence flew into outer space as soon as his toe touched the water. On the way home, the 2 Woodalongs continued pillaging the canyon, which I will no longer go anywhere near. And when I arrived at my cave, Terrence immediately flew straight up again and is either having a panic attack, a seizure, or is playing Dance Dance Revolution. I don't know what happened to this guy, what kind of traumas he went through to make him keep doing this, but every time he does, the hunger just starts rapidly decreasing. And I also couldn't get him to come down because he won't respond to my whistles, so I used the new fertilizer to plant the last crop and harvested the 3 that are already going, and by then he had calmed down a little bit, so I took Terrence back out, and I found this level 50 griffin. It's definitely not great, but it's much better than Terrence, so I shot him with 3 of the 10 times darts, filled up my canteen to quench my thirst, and then threw out Mr. Demogorgon, who I definitely underestimated earlier, because he did about 10k damage with this really fast bite AoE attack. That was pretty nice. And after parachuting down to transfer the Prime Bronto into my sleeping griffin, I stepped on this Carno for 1000 damage, and then I tested out some of the other attacks. 28k, not bad. He's definitely not as good as Leatherback, but definitely not bad. And he's also really fast and can clap apparently. And, well, he can also do this. Bro, can they all dance? I want to see Leatherback and Doug do the Macarena. It is really nice how I can walk down his tail instead of dying when I forget parachutes, though. Anyways, the Griffin was tamed, and I decided to name him Swoop Dog. And naming Swoop Dog made me realize that I never named my Kaiju. So I threw out Raijin, the Pacific Rim guy, and after he did his spawn animation, I threw out Leatherback. Raijin got the name of Mr. Demogorgon. The pause after is me Googling it to make sure I spelled it right. And then Leatherback got a much more elaborate name, straight from my creative genius. From now on, we refer to you as Steve. On day 71, after regrouping at base, I set out to tame a Famuto, because 200k torp for something that good, I just have to tame him. I'm trying to assemble an army, and it took a lot of flying around, but eventually I found one in the forest here by the desert. So after landing for Stam, I pulled out my long neck rifle, and I hit my first shot. After she speed boosted away, I sent my last trank dart right into her spinal cord, and now she's on the floor. I used Mr. Demogorgon to farm some prime meat, and it looks like this might take around a day to tame. But then when I walk behind unconscious Famuto, I'm like randomly taking damage from the ground. And Swoop Dog was stuck inside of her leg, so I was trying to get him out, but I got too close and the death aura of Famuto disintegrated me. Luckily, I had a bed right over here because of the wyverns from earlier, so I made it back over to grab my bag. This is kind of dumb. After waiting 3 minutes on the bed to cool down, I managed to whistle Swoop Dog out of there, and I farmed some more prime meat just in case it spoiled. I was hoping that if I dismounted but stayed on top of the Griffin, Famuto's death aura wouldn't paralyze me. I was wrong. I couldn't even get close enough to get my stuff back this time, so I just kind of sat here. And about 15 minutes later, at the end of day 71, Famuto was tamed. And this weird looking female alien marks 31 out of 47 Kaiju. I named her Death Aura because I was very familiar with that experience at this point, and I brought all 3 of my Kaiju children back to my cave, where I would repair my armor, grab some food, and then head outside to test Death Aura's abilities. She has 1.2 million health as well, which is a massive upgrade over Steve. And all of her attacks do absolutely insane damage. Although I will say the attacks do look kind of boring aesthetically. Oh, and also she can square dance for some reason. Yeah, that was really weird. Anyways, it's pretty insane how every single one of her attacks does like 30k damage. I literally one-shotted Callisto with a basic left trigger stomp. But for my next order of business, I wanted to farm some more narcotics to redeem myself and finally tame Godzilla. So I took Hannah Brontana out to the yellow flower field and filled up Argent 47's entire inventory with narco berries. I then proceeded to unload them all into an unwilling one and started crafting about 1500 narcotics. That wasn't enough though, so the rest of day 72 and a good bit of day 73 were spent forcing Hannah Brontana to work a second shift in the yellow flower field, fully maxing out one of the iguanodon's quad muscles, my game crashing multiple times, crafting some premium drugs, farming some perfectly good meat with Famuto and then letting it go bad on purpose, and repeating the process. While I was waiting on the narcotics to finish crafting, I farmed some more prime meat and mejo berries to make one more magical health potion. And on day 74, I had roughly 20 of the super overpowered 500 times strength darts and a full chem bench crafting more narcotics. Oh, and one of the iguanodon has like 10,000 narco berries in his storage unit. Don't worry, it's quite literally making him stronger as I put every level into weight. I definitely had enough to tame Godzilla at this point, I just wasn't sure how to actually knock him out. But I started scouting, and I realized that these stronger kaiju like Cherno Alpha, well, I have enough tranks, but also if I used all 3 of my kaiju together, they'd probably be strong enough to take these guys down. Not when there's 2 in one spot though. Anyways, I continued scouting around, crashed like 3 times, and when I landed for Stam in the jungle, this guy showed up. Typhoon, ancient everworm, has been summoned. Oh, he's right next to me. So I threw out Death Aura, who instantly ran away to beef with another Famuto. And then as I sat there, abandoned, I decided to throw out Steve so I would not die. The fight was actually pretty easy, but Typhoon and all of his tentacled children did manage to deal a pretty good amount of damage to Steve. Luckily, the other Famuto ran away about halfway through, and Death Aura finally decided to help. And just like that, Typhoon, the ancient everworm, and his creepy tentacle servants were sent to the Shadow Realm. And the world is a slightly better place for the 32nd out of 47th time. But before I could do anything, Death Aura decided to train for the Olympics, and she ran a 100-meter dash straight off the cliff. I think she just invented a new category. And down there under the cliff, she continued kickboxing that Famuto from earlier. So I used Steve to help out a little bit, and together we took the Famuto down. But before I could cryo everybody, Death Aura decided to have beef with the entire world today and attacked the Colossalus too. Like, chill out, lady dude. I whistled passive 4 times now. Anyways, I helped Death Aura assassinate someone again. Got a pretty sizable element profit, if I do say so myself. But now I'm gonna have to waste a health potion on Steve, and Death Aura is down to about 800k health. So apparently Typhoon accidentally fell asleep while consuming Gaia's brother, which grew him to this size. Huh. I guess broccoli really is good for you. After those fights, I found myself right next to the beaver dam, so I decided to make a detour. I then proceeded to summon my Death Aura and rain destruction upon an entire species of beaver. I raided every single one of their dams, simply because I wanted the flowers inside to make health potions. And then my game crashed, but after that, I set out to find Godzilla. And I did find Godzilla, but it wasn't Godzilla. This was Mecha Godzilla, and I'm not gonna lie, that sounds pretty cool. He's a knockout tame, and he's powered by Mecha G batteries. And this dude is shooting red lasers out of his mouth and turning his hands into circular saw blades. And at that moment, I changed my mind. We're taming Mecha Godzilla instead. So I landed for Stam and mentally prepared myself to shoot a robot with tranquilizers, because apparently that works. He was busy engaging in mass destruction with this Titania dragon, which made it very easy for me to land my first 6 shots. But then when his torpor got around 700k, he started running.
Why are you running?
I needed stamina, so I decided to land for a minute, but when I got back in pursuit, he decided to go cliff jumping into the canyon. Oh no. And then my game crashed. No, I was so close. Why were you running? When I loaded back in, the entire game rolled back to before I shot any trank arrows. But this time, Mecha Godzilla got like stuck on the mountain, and despite him not being able to move, I still managed to miss a shot. But he literally could not turn around to fight back, and after 10 shots, he was down. Unfortunately, the fairy tale dragon started attacking his metal exterior while his battery was out, so I had to hire Death Aura to exterminate these nuisances. This definitely hurt my taming effectiveness, but it's much easier to knock out kaiju while they're distracted, so it's just kind of a trade-off, I guess. I mean, it's not like I can make a trap or anything. Anyways, I needed 2 Mecha G batteries to power up this Godzilla-shaped machine, so I headed back to base. Got assaulted by Woodalong and Destroya on the way, but I survived, and the batteries for Mecha Godzilla take 250 raw metal each. I only have metal ingots, so I took Argent 47 across the mountain to do a proper metal run. If I'm gonna come all the way out here, I'm not just gonna farm 500 metal. I slowly flew back to my cave, and after depositing the excess metal into the forge, I grabbed some electronics, crystal, and a ton of element to craft 2 Energizer AA batteries. They spoil in 3 hours, but I only needed about 5 minutes to fly over. But when I arrived, I was greeted with this. Woodalong was devouring Mechagodzilla, and he was 1 hit away from death. I have no idea how I pulled this off, but I managed to bite his wing and pull him away from the unconscious robot. At this point, I was basically a professional gamer, and I swooped back over and fed him the 2 Energizer AA batteries, which instantly tamed him because he was starving at this point. His level was really bad because, as you might guess, Woodalong dealing a million damage to your tame is not exactly great, but I put him into a cryopod and I got away from there as fast as possible. Repairing Mechagodzilla's engine marked Kaiju number 33 out of 47. But I wasn't gonna forget what Woodalong tried to do, and I wanted revenge. I never realized his health was only 300k. I assumed it was in the millions since he renders in from so far away, but with my family of 4, I think I can take him down. So I grabbed my health potions and I took Mechagodzilla out for a test drive. I was expecting this guy to be the best Kaiju I had by far, but I'm not gonna lie, he's trash. The 2 attacks I was the most excited for only do like 1k damage per tick, and they require you to constantly hit your target to even get 10k out of the long attack. And most of the other attacks just straight up suck. He does have this buff that you can do to increase melee damage, which is cool, but it takes half of the timer just to execute the ability, and then you only get like 20 seconds. I tried to 1v1 this Skullcrawler, and he was doing way more damage to me than I was to him. The laser is just abysmal, by the way. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. But also keep in mind that the melee on this guy is insanely low because Woodalong destroyed the taming effectiveness, so it does kind of make sense. Anyways, speaking of Woodalong, it's time for us to get our revenge. When I arrived, he was on the edge of the canyon, and the snow mountain had like 4 of the strongest Kaiju in the game staring into my soul, and then my game crashed like 5 times. But when I tried to use my Death Aura on Woodalong, he knocked me into the canyon. And then he flew all the way down, and I'm definitely not going down there, especially not with the Destroyer. So I threw back out Swoop Dog and flew away. I scouted around a bit for a better target, but my game crashed like 3 more times, and I eventually decided to fight this Chitin, the guy who's tired of the world shenanigans from earlier. I threw out all 4 of my Kaiju, and I used 1 healing potion on Steve, and then I realized that Mechagodzilla didn't have a name, so I named him McDonald's because he's low quality. I broke both of my legs trying to dismount, and then I died from freezing to death. Alright, I'm kind of an idiot. When I made it back over on my PT, Death Aura was 1v1ing Chitin without help from any of the other Kaiju, and I couldn't even get close without dying from the murder snow again. It definitely would have been smart to just whistle her out of there and abandon the fight, but I've never heard the word smart in my life, so instead I decided to bring over the other Kaiju and let all of them fight Chitin on their own. When I respawned 5 minutes later, the Pteranodon was dead and all of the Kaiju were getting low on health. None of them were even attacking, they were just kind of standing there getting hit, and it was basically just Death Aura fighting the Chitin. And despite Famuto's efforts, he was still above half health. This definitely was not gonna work. So when Death Aura did her charge attack and fell off of the snow mountain, I took this opportunity to see how low her health was. Long story short, I got everyone out of there. I had to use all 4 of my health potions that I grinded so hard for to heal these guys up, and yeah, that was a massive waste of my time and my health potions. I learned my lesson to stay away from the death snow without proper protection, and I kind of just flew around for the rest of day 77, observing the different Kaiju and trying to pick out my next target. Most of the world is so populated that I can't get a proper fight without aggroing the entire universe, but eventually I found this Tech Gojuran here in the desert, the final Kaiju termination weapon. Yeah, we'll see about that. After throwing out all 4 of my full health Kaiju, the fight commenced. Gojuran was able to stun me very frequently, which was suboptimal, and at first, McDonald's was actually doing some serious damage, which was unexpected, but for some reason, Mr. Demogorgon would not help with the battle. This went on for a while until me and Death Aura got knocked into this canyon, and at this point, McDonald's was no longer helping, and Steve was bleeding out in the middle of the fight. It looked like we would win before Steve died though, so we continued on. He'll be alright. But then this happened. I don't know how he managed to just randomly kill me after 10 minutes of not doing that, but I rushed back over on Terrence, which took forever. I remounted Death Aura, and we finished what we had started. Yes, sir! Spawn tameable EMP mech. Steve was insanely low health, and that was very close. But everybody survived. I picked up this Jaeger core off the ground, and that marks Kaiju number 34 out of 47. On the way home, I came across another Mothra, and I had two options. One, I could rid the world from Mothra, or two, I could manipulate Mothra into being my friend. I do need some more Kaiju for my army, but Mothra wants Mothra snacks, and those would require crops, sap, and stimulants. Luckily though, I'm in the desert, and right behind me there's Joshua trees that happen to give sap. I don't know who named these trees, probably someone named Joshua, I'd assume. Anyways, I got enough sap for about 3 Mothra snacks, and I headed back to base, and crashed 3 times. But finally, after 79 days, I found Valst the False Titan by Greenop. I'd been looking for this guy the entire time, so I spawned in McDonald's, and yeah, I think he's way better when unridden because it took forever just to deal 30k damage. But after the False Titan was rightly felled, that marks 35 out of 47 Kaiju. And in addition to the sap, I also need 20 honey for each Mothra snack. So I grabbed a few beehives, got stung more times than Coyote Peterson, grabbed a few more beehives, actually died this time, and after grabbing a couple more beehives and filling up some water skins, I had 3 of Mothra's very favoritist snack. I'm an expert in grammar if you couldn't tell. But my Kaiju were still really low health, so I took Mr. Demogorgon out to the Upside Down to farm some Prime Meat, and then I slapped some rocks to farm Spark Powder for stimulants. And now I have 2 more of the world's healthiest potions, which I force-fed to Death Aura, who was a little bit below half health, and Steve, who was literally below 1% of his max health. Mr. Demogorgon was already full because he's a coward, and McDonald's has 1.8 million max health, so I don't think it's that bad if he's down a little bit. So now that everyone's healed and there's no casualties yet, it was time to add another Kaiju, or maybe 2, to the roster. But when I approached Mothra and fed her a snack, the taming progress was only at 9%. I don't want to grind out 120 honey for 11 of these snacks, so I summoned Death Aura and McDonald's. We were gonna teach Mothra a lesson. Alright Mothra, you want to be greedy? Once the fight began, I quickly realized that Mothra's attacks did not deal very much damage. And that was because she's more of a support, doing healing and buff effects. Which honestly, that would have been an amazing addition to my team, but I'm not grinding 11 Mothra snacks for 5 days. Anyways, halfway through the fight, she somehow phased into this little ravine, which made me miss like all of my attacks, and for some reason McDonald's kept using his laser and hitting me instead of Mothra, which did more damage than she did. Ow! Dude, stop! I had to do some advanced trigonometry to find the perfect angle to be able to hit her, but after about 10 minutes of this, 36 out of 47 Kaiju have been ridden from this world. I almost died from hunger, and then from thirst, and then my game crashed 3 times in a row, but eventually I made my way to the canyon without crashing, and Woodalong was far enough outside the snow for me to not die from frostbite. I had to take this opportunity, so I summoned Death Aura, but before I could cryo Swoop Dog, Woodalong used some type of magical powers, which made Swoop Dog run for his mother, and then my legs stopped working. Desperate not to die, I slowly crip walked towards Death Aura's 85-foot tall ankles, and then I teleported to being mounted on top. And since I can't dismount to throw out the other Kaiju without being existentially erased, I guess that me and Death Aura are gonna have to do this one alone. Woodalong flies around a lot, making it really difficult to land any of the stronger attacks because they have charge-up times. So while I was able to land a few big hits, most of them were the basic kick thing that Famuto does for like 3k damage each. Luckily, Woodalong only had 2 attacks that did any type of substantial damage to my ego. One of them stuns me for a solid 5 seconds, and the other one shoots a beam of lightning that hits me about 300 times in less than a second. And then he just randomly flies into the distance and calls in a lightning storm from above as he descends back into the fight. What a drama queen. Anyways, it lasted a while due to him flying around and me getting stunned all the time, and I was really low health trying to avoid death. But after the sun rose on day 81, Woodalong did the opposite. 5 heads. For what? Apparently, this guy dropped an entire autobiography for the prehistoric generation. Yeah, not to be disrespectful to the dead or anything, but I'm not reading all that. It literally goes off the screen. Anyways, I found Swoop Dog still alive over here in the snow, and I realized that I have no parachutes. But after making it back over and retrieving my belongings, we headed back to base. I do have this Jaeger core and the recipe for tameable Jaeger, which does what the title says. What an amazing description. I considered crafting one because I heard they're really good for knocking things out, but I'm not sure if it's this Jaeger specifically or that bigger one called like the anti-Kaiju Jaeger. Anyway, after Woodalong's passing, that marks 37 out of 47 degenerates exterminated. Every time I open that spreadsheet, I just get flashbanged. Like, why does Excel not have a dark mode, man? Anyways, it was almost time to tame something bigger, but I was still scouting for another Kaiju to potentially fight. My game crashed 3 times, and then I found a Cherno Alpha in the hot tub outside the cave, and he was jamming out to boss fight music. I've seen him so many times, and not once has he played this music, but anyways, my game crashed, and when I loaded back, he was gone. I think I can take him if I use my family of 4, but I need to find another. However, when I reached the desert, I saw a Kaiju all the way over there, and I wanted to get revenge for what happened earlier, so I swooped over. The one that I had saw originally was a bit closer to Doug than I would like, but luckily there was another one on the beach over here, and this one only had 800k health. So I threw out all 4 of my Kaiju, whistled them to follow, and I waited until after he did his engine explosion attack, so now it was on cooldown, and it was time for me and the Kaiju squad to make our move. I circled around so there was room for everyone, but for some reason McDonald's has a 5-foot render distance, and we left too fast, so he's not here. And Mr. Demogorgon's AI refuses to attack when unridden, so it looks like it's just me, Deathora, and Steve. Again. And Deathora is amazing, but for some reason Chitin kept like knocking her into the air, and I would get stuck floating and couldn't attack half the time. And even when I was on the ground, he kept spamming his 10-second stun, and I just kind of sat there and watched as Steve tried his absolute best to keep clapping. Unfortunately, Steve only has 500k health, and 20 seconds into the fight, he was already below 200k. I managed to grab Chitin's focus away from Steve, and that movement was just enough for McDonald's to render back in. Chitin's focus was now aggroed completely. Steve might survive this, and now that I could properly attack, Chitin's health was dropping fast. And it didn't take long before Chitin ran away, and he was trying to swim into the ocean. Where are you going? And when he realized that he was in the ocean, he turned around to come back, and everyone simultaneously did their strongest attack, and we dealt like 200,000 damage to that man in a matter of seconds. Long story short, it wasn't a good day to be named Chitin the White Death. That's what you get. Apparently, when he dies, his body explodes like a nuke and deals radiation damage over time to everyone that came to his funeral. Talk about a toxic relationship. I got a lot of element from that, and Chitin the White Death is now experiencing White Death number 38 out of 47. And just like that, we were down to the single digits. Only 9 more Kaiju to go. On the way back, next to Chitin's brother and his walking torch, I inspected Doug. And while he does have 7.5 million torpor, that is insane, he only requires 1 exceptional kibble to tame. And that means if I can land somewhere around 65 500 times strike darts on him, I could tame Doug. I already had 20 darts, so it wasn't that crazy of an idea. Although, I don't know if I could actually pull off the knockout, because when I tried that on a Godzilla earlier, it didn't go so well. I could probably finish off most of this challenge just fighting everything one at a time, keeping crafting health potions just to heal everything up, but that's kind of boring. And at this point, I really need something stronger. My 3 main options here are Godzilla, Ghidorah, who I need to spawn in by crafting this Ghidorah crystal, which would require me getting 15 Godzilla dorsal fins, or I could just go for Doug. And I definitely could be wasting my time grinding 32,000 narcotics to make these 65 500 times strength darts, but I can't just play Kaiju ARK and not tame Doug, or at least try to. So I let my intrusive thoughts win, said intrusive thoughts were all involving Doug, and I locked in, did some math, made sure this was possible, and for the next 4 days, I'm gonna be grinding narco berries. This might take a while. And there I was 4 days later with 50 more trank darts added to my arsenal. I had a total of 70, and now all I needed for Doug was the kibble, but I kind of forgot which kind he wanted, so I took Gryffindor, not to be confused with Gryffindor, all the way back to the desert, crashed again, and I noted that Doug really likes exceptional kibble, and it's a good thing that I checked because I would have assumed it was extraordinary kibble. That's kind of an interesting design choice. Anyways, I almost got blasted by Mr. Robot's rocket launcher, but I was almost ready to tame Doug. I just needed to craft one exceptional kibble. And the recipe calls for 1 large egg, which I already have from Hannah Brontana, and a focal chili, which I need to cook. So I farmed a balanced diet of every color and variety of berry, cooked up some chili that happened to be focal, refilled my canteen, and cooked up 2 pieces of kibble. They were very exceptional, if I do say so myself. Before leaving, I relieved Juan the Iguanodon from the pressure of carrying 10,000 narco berries, and I crafted a few more trank darts. And now, with 2 exceptional kibble and 73 very overpowered tranks all in my left hand, it was time to confront the even more overpowered Doug. So I went to the desert, humbly fighting off arcs crashing as I flew through the sky. And I did find Doug, but I also found the sun, which was burning my flesh. My health wasn't dropping too fast, but I definitely can't take any risks here. The only way to prevent this was to make some ghillie armor to keep me cool. And yeah, I know a massive ghillie suit keeping you cool in the desert makes absolutely zero logical sense, but that's how it works. So I headed back and started looking for a terminant for organic polymer. Yes, I realized I could have farmed a mantis while I was in the desert, but I didn't realize it at the time, so yeah. Anyways, I came across the giant ant here in the canyon next to a leatherback who was clapping enthusiastically. I stole some leftovers from this magical floating ant carcass, and on day 88, I handmade a full suit of ghillie using dead ant. And I headed out to the dunes where I would go head to head with a lizard man named Doug. When I finally made my arrival, he belly flopped on some peasants, which caused my game to crash, and then I stopped and rested for a moment to mentally prepare for the battle of a lifetime. So I opened up Spotify, started playing some classic rock, and I cranked the volume all the way to max. You can't hear it because copyright laws would smite my existence. I then loaded an intergalactic horse tranquilizer into my long neck rifle, and I approached the beast. He has 26 million health, by the way. As my page even has a disclaimer that says, warning, Doug is extremely powerful. It's the only mod that says that. I can't use my Kaiju here because he's probably gonna one-shot them. So I hovered above on my Gryffindor and I started raining NyQuil darts onto my mortal enemy. I kind of got into this rhythm where I was able to angle my Griffin looking down when I shot and then angle him looking up when I was reloading to maintain my height. And I had to keep doing 360s to stay directly above him, so I guess you could say Doug's about to get trick shotted 62 times in a row. He can't even hit me because he's vertically challenged, and his laser just doesn't reach high enough. I guess everybody has their weaknesses. No, dude. The last time my game saved was right before I started shooting Doug, so once again I grabbed my rifle with the longest neck and I sent Doug about 70 messages. Doug was getting very sleepy, but then this happened. Oh no. Doug's gonna delete me, isn't he? I tried to parachute and whistle Gryffindor, but to no avail. It is a really good thing I tamed that second Griffin because I still had Swoop Dog at base. So I swooped back over as fast as Swoop Dog's wings could flap, and Doug's absolutely massive torso was standing right on top of my body. But luckily he has amnesia and forgot about the 40 trank darts that I lodged into his spleen. So after he got distracted on some civilians, I rushed in and looted my bag. I actually remembered to land for stamina this time. I was getting really low on ammo, and Doug was running for his life, or running for his consciousness, I guess. He was low-key moving. Like, I can't even move that fast. But him moving makes it hard to hit, and I definitely couldn't afford to miss any more shots. Okay. The relief that I felt when Doug went down was unmatched. I landed on top of Doug's unconscious spinal cord, and I offered him the two most exceptional kibble that I'd ever laid eyes on. Swoop Dog somehow phased inside of Doug's ribcage, and from this angle, I can see the back of Doug's tongue. I don't know how I feel about that. Anyways, after dissecting the scorpion, I landed back on Doug's back and then passed out from said scorpion. And when I woke up, I just sat here right next to Doug's kidney. But after being stuck here for the next 10 minutes, I had achieved what I initially thought to be impossible. I domesticated Doug. And then I named him Doug. Yes, I clearly put all my IRL levels into creativity. But with Doug by my side, that marked Kaiju number 39 out of 47. 33 million? That is the most insane stat sheet I have ever seen. So I decided to test out his basic attack on this poor defenseless little oil bug. Okay, what? Well, they definitely weren't lying when they said that Doug was extremely powerful. I then went up to Goliath for Doug's left trigger attack, and all he did was sit on the guy for 300,000 damage. This is not unbalanced at all. And I just leveled up 70 times because that was a kaiju. There was literally no need for any stats, so I just spammed melee damage. By the way, I'm aware that you can craft this Doug bone to instantly spawn in a tamed Doug, but that seemed way too easy, and I wanted to do a proper tame. I completely forgot that I wasn't invincible there. Anyways, Doug avenged my death and annihilated that man, and I had to fly halfway across the prehistoric country on my pterodon. Things were getting very overspawned at this point, and as I flew through the desert, Mr. Robot and his rocket launcher were foaming at the mouth waiting for me to land, and my stamina was getting really low, but luckily we made it back to Doug. He dismantled Mr. Robot, but then Mr. Robot's twin brother sprinted over and shot an anti-aircraft missile right into Terrence's eyebrow. So I proceeded to consume his existence. This was my first Kiryu kill, and second, I guess, so we're now at Kaiju 40 out of 47. Doug didn't have too many other attacks, but this laser, when I press Q, is doing 90k per tick and is literally like a machine gun firing nukes. Anyways, it was getting really hot again, and my armor is broken, so I dismounted Doug. Not dying from fall damage when I dismount is very refreshing. And I set out to find some of my remaining targets. Dude, why is Doug's icon just a question mark? When I made it back to Greenhob, I found Zenonia, Queen of the Hive. And I don't know why it took this long for me to find her, but the 0.1 seconds that it took to dethrone her marks Kaiju number 41 out of 47. I then started hunting down every Kaiju in existence. And when I made it back to my cave, leaving a path of destruction behind me, Cherno Alpha was waiting. So I pressed Q on my keyboard, and Doug turned blue. A giant laser emitted from Doug's esophagus and dealt 93,000 damage about 20 times in a row in less than a second. 42 out of 47. This feels like cheating. Anyways, I organized some stuff at my base, and now all I really have left is the giant broccoli, Mr. Salmon, Godzilla, Destroya, and Ghidorah. And there happen to be 3 broccoli volunteers right outside my cave. I landed over here where it was safe, and Doug decided to belly flop in a crowded area. Oh, there's so many numbers on the screen. Moving along, I approached the vegetable and I took a bite for 600,000 damage. I was so scared of these guys like an hour ago. And becoming a vegan marks Kaiju number 43 out of 47. So after belly flopping all the broccoli minions and using Doug's laser to snipe the other veggies and one-shot them from afar, Doug's power destroyed the world. My next target was Godzilla. So as nightfall approached, I started swoop dogging across the landscape. On day 90, I reached the volcano tippy top, which is right next to Godzilla's Highland hometown. When I arrived, there was a Gojiran here, and I did delete his robot version earlier, but we actually haven't fought him yet. So I threw out Doug, who ate some winged fairy tale degenerates, and I proceeded to press Q on my keyboard. Goodbye, buddy. I had the regular and Mecha Gojiran as the same thing, so that's still 43 out of 47, but he had the Martyrdom perk from Call of Duty, and his death gave me radiation poisoning, which caused me to pass out and lie here unconscious underneath Doug's flabby stomach. 5 minutes later, I woke up on 50 health, and I approached the king of all kaiju. Godzilla. He had a Famuto bodyguard, but all Doug had to do was flop his ginormous belly onto the grass, inflicting 1.8 million pain. And after one more bite, Godzilla had fallen. And not only did this mark Kaiju number 44 out of 47, but he dropped a Godzilla dorsal fin. And I need 15 of these to spawn in Ghidorah using this Ghidorah crystal, who is the big boy final Kaiju of this mod. I haven't seen Ghidorah yet, and it's unlikely but entirely possible that he could compete with Doug. Anyways, Mr. Salmon, also known as Okeanos embodiment of the ocean, was right here off the coast. So after swatting some fire-breathing flies, Doug put on his swim trunks and dove in. We swam into the deep end and we aggroed Mr. Salmon to come up to the surface. It wouldn't let me do any of my other attacks, so I just kind of started spamming bites, and he would have died very fast. But then this happened. I got deleted. Oh, no, chill, bro. Doug, come here, dude. I got deleted. So I grabbed Terrence back at base and flew thousands of miles across the wilderness. And when I finally made it back, Mr. Salmon was gone. I'm not sure if Doug killed him or if he just despawned, so I might look for another just to be sure, but I'm gonna mark that as Kaiju number 45 out of 47. As I swam back, I kind of struggled for a while trying to get my body back because it was dark, I couldn't see anything, and my lungs kept filling up with water. I eventually made it back to the coast, and this Terrence right here is the last one of his bloodline. I put him in a Pokeball. And now there were only 2 Kaiju left on this entire planet. The first one is Ghidorah, who I need to farm Godzilla dorsal fins for, and the second one is Destroya, the absolute menace to society. And even though I didn't have the items to summon Ghidorah, I knew exactly where to find Destroya. There's always at least 27 Destroyas every time I go to the Crash Fest Canyon, and this time was no different. Bro's falling from the heavens. So after my game crashed, I flew back over, waited on Destroya to descend from above, tried to summon Doug but got ransacked by an ant colony, and after that, it was time for Destroya to be destroyed. Destroya's opening move smacked Doug's ear for a whopping 15k damage. But Doug soon retaliated by using his beer belly to suffocate Destroya for 1.8 million. And then he dipped Destroya's wings in some ranch dressing and sent him to the grave. Well, that was kinda anticlimactic. With Destroya out of the picture, there was only one Kaiju remaining, and that was the king of the skies, Ghidorah. And to craft the Ghidorah spawner, I needed 5,000 crystal, 4,000 raw metal, 500 element, and 15 Godzilla dorsal fins. I already had the element, but I'm kind of bankrupt in the crystal department, and just finding 15 Godzillas is gonna be quite the task considering my game crashes every time I fly 10 foot. But I decided to focus on the crystal and metal first, and to speed up that process, I needed to tame an Anki. Luckily, there was a herd of these metal farmers frolicking through the field, so I loaded a 50 times trank dart and shot it into the fella's prehistoric skin, and after farming some berries and eliminating some potential threats, the only thing left for this 90 Anki to tame was time. So while I waited, I went over to the snow because I saw Godzilla in the distance. I needed 14 more of this man's fins, and every time he decides to respawn, I will extract the fin from his body. So I threw out my bestie Doug and used his laser mouth to surgically remove Godzilla's dorsal fin. I was only in the snow for like 10 seconds and was already about to die. I seemed to be cold. But then when I made it back over to the Anki, he was being devoured by Saberteeth. Swoop Dog is a weakling, so I tried using Argent 47, but it was too late. Alright, come here, buddy. Anyways, there was another 85 right here, so I used my last 2 weaker but still overpowered trank darts to send him into a deep slumber. And there wasn't much else I could do right now, so I just sat here for 20 minutes while he ate his berry buffet. And on day 92, Frankie the Anki was recruited to the team. So after giving Frankie a tour of my cave-like mansion, I came up with a plan to farm this Ghidorah spawner as fast and as safely as possible. And to initiate this plan, I grabbed my 500 element and my 2 Godzilla dorsal fins, crafted a smithy and a stone foundation, swoop dogged all the way over back to the desert waterfall cave, and constructed a crafting station. This area has a lot of crystal and enough metal, and this smithy is where I'll be hoarding all of the resources. It was now day 93, and I had the 500 element, 5,000 crystal, 4,000 stone, and 6,000 raw metal all inside of my desert smithy. And the only thing left to summon the legendary Ghidorah was 13 more of Godzilla's reptilian dorsal fins. Godzilla only spawns in the highlands and in the murder snow. Looks like I'm taking a trip to the highlands. This might take a while. That took a while, but on day 98, I finally had 14 dorsal fins. I guess I counted wrong. Apparently, I was one fin short. So I flew back over to the highlands and saw a floating Godzilla carcass, which was a bit disturbing. And after Swoop Dog explored this lighthouse, I found a Godzilla right next to some broccoli. Got vomited on by the broccoli, used Doug's laser to steam the broccoli, belly flopped some minions, and then I pressed Shift Q on my keyboard. Doug slowly started to turn red. And once he reached the boiling point, Doug's liver turned into an atomic bomb. That's what happens when you eat too much Taco Bell. And now on day 99, I had everything I needed to summon Ghidorah. But unfortunately, I don't have 20,000 weight to carry all of these materials, and for some reason, it has to be crafted in my inventory. So I just started popcorning 200 items from the smithy. And then I stood right here in the middle of the circle of boxes from Amazon Prime. And then I pressed X to grab all. My arms ain't long enough. So I had to put everything back in the smithy before they despawn forever. And I grinded some resources to craft this little thatch backstop. Yeah, that didn't work either. But then I realized, wait a minute. Yeah, sometimes my brain don't work. Anyways, the important thing is I eventually figured it out. So after dropping all of the items in small patches, I eventually completed a 20,000 pound deadlift. And finally, after 99 days of my game crashing, I had finally crafted the Ghidorah spawn crystal. I decided to fly out to the desert since it was a little bit more open, good place for a boss fight, and I wasn't sure if I was going to tame or delete this man, but I summoned Doug just to be safe, and yeah, I have no idea what to expect. Ghidorah had 4.5 million torpor. I really wanted to tame this guy, but I don't have another 40 trank darts. It looks like only one of us is walking out of here alive. Well, that was fast. And just like that, all 47 kaiju have been eliminated from the ARK, and the world was finally safe again. But it wasn't over just yet. One last kaiju had appeared in the highland, and this one was much bigger and much stronger than anything we have ever seen on the ARK. It was time for one last fight. So on day 100, I dropped off Frankie and Argent 47, grabbed my entire kaiju regime, waved my final goodbye to the last remaining Terrans, gave Chopstick one last pickaxe to the retina,
Each time when I come here,
and force-fed Juan an entire stack of narco berries that he's been carrying for 5 hours. Good night, buddy. This was the last time I would ever set foot in this cave. And if I do fail and perish today, then I will respawn on the beach, knowing that I tried my best. The entire fate of the prehistoric universe is in the hands of McDonald's, Steve, Mr. Demogorgon, Death Aura, and Doug. And that concludes our story of how a lizard man named Doug changed the fate of the universe. And after witnessing McDonald's do this, I sailed off into the sunset, I won't be returning to my cave to feed Chopstick.
Each time when I come here,
If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate you leaving a like, and let me know in the comments what mod or what type of challenge you guys would like to see next. Don't forget to install Raid using the QR code on screen or the link in the description below. And if you want to see me beat ARK in 100 days at level 1 without unlocking any crafting ingrams, click right here.